Chapter 796. You should say that you're going to settle the score with that group of June 2 eggs later. Ing Xiao Xiao mumbled as she blinked her large eyes inside the soul bell. Ouyang Feng's face immediately darkened. His saliva splattered everywhere as he said, "What does a wimpy brat like you know? Black Swan, you're not even as old as I am." Ing Xiao Xiao shouted as she blinked her large eyes. "I'm warning you. Even if you're Chu Feng's sister-in-law, I'll still beat you if you provoke me." Ouyang Feng's spittle flew everywhere. Ing Xiao Xiao was fuming and immediately stopped talking. It had to be said that the five-color divine light was extremely profound. Not only could it sweep away all living things, but it could also travel at the speed of light. In an instant, they were already 2,800 miles away. This was godly speed. Ouyang Feng was so shocked that he was tongue-tied. He felt as if the wasteland had moved backward in that instant, as if the starry sky had reversed. Puff! Ing Zhixin coughed out a mouthful of soul blood. Her spiritual energy plummeted, and she became much weaker all of a sudden. "Sister." Worry was written all over Ing Xiao Xiao's face as she hugged Mo Tianga's arm. Nervousness and heartache were written all over her little face. She was too embarrassed to cheat her older sister anymore. In the distance, Pu Lin howled and burned with rage. 2 batches of sacrifices had escaped right under his nose, making him unable to tolerate it. He roared, "Chase after him. Use the spirit-traversing talismans. Don't care about the cost." It was fine if the winged godhead, the immortal destiny physique, and the purple-haired youth escaped, but Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng, who had the sacred medicine and the divine beast blood, would definitely not allow them to escape. "Little Marquis, this type of divine talisman is too precious. We don't have many." On the side, his trusted aide said softly, his expression extremely unpleasant. "Use as many as you can. Go kill the enemies." Pu Lin's face was gloomy as he held the heavenly dagger axe in his hand. If he let go of the person who stole the sacred medicine, he would definitely go crazy. In his heart, he had long planned out how he was going to leave behind the holy medicine. If he used it properly, he would be able to undergo rebirth, be reborn. Chi, chi, chi. Patches of golden light blossomed. In the end, 50 people set off and were bestowed with divine traversing talismans. The weakest among them was an evolver at the quasi-golden Arhut level, and most of them had reached the golden Arhut level. "Let's go." Pu Lin led the way. The 50 of them set off first, and the army followed behind. Sure enough, their speed increased. With the earth-shrinking technique, the 50 of them traversed the earth and instantly traveled hundreds of kilometers. These people felt that they were heading in the right direction, so they started a carpet search and gave chase. In the end, they split up. The divine traversal talisman was truly astonishing. Even though it wasn't as good as Ing Zhixin's 5-color divine radiance, it was superior in its endurance. Only a crack had appeared on the divine talisman after it had dashed for nearly 1,000 kilometers. In the end, they caught up with them and found traces of Chu Feng and the others. The main reason was because when Ing Zhixin used the 5-color divine light to activate the soul bell to escape, her speed was too fast. It was very difficult to change directions along the way, so she was advancing in a straight line. It ended in the blink of an eye. "Let's see where you can escape to," Pu Lin shouted. His eyes shone with divine light, and he was incomparably pleasantly surprised. At this moment, Ouyang Feng's big black face was about to drip water. They had used the speed of light to escape, but they were actually caught up. The other party was too heaven-defying. Chi! An arrow flew over. With a hong sound, it was as if a sun tore through the sky, exceptionally resplendent and carrying raging flames. This was fired by a divine archer. With a clang, the soul bell was struck, and a glaring energy ripple erupted as it vibrated in all directions. Below the soul bell, a few people were jolted and coughed out large mouthfuls of mixed blood. Even Ing Xiao Xiao was no exception. She almost disintegrated because of this. Chu Feng's expression was unsightly. If he didn't have the soul bell, they would have been shot to death by that divine archer. "My ghostly slaves, I've given you a chance. Why aren't you kneeling over?" Hu Lin berated. Let's go, Ying Zhixian lightly shouted. She risked the excessive consumption of her vital qi to use the peerless, wonderful technique of the five-color divine light again to activate the soul bell. With a hum, the bell shone and enveloped them as it tore through the sky once more. It was still 1,800 kilometers. They appeared on a wasteland. This area was sparse, and there were a few tall plants. Furthermore, they saw the winged godhead, the immortal destiny physique, and the purple-haired youth. Those three people were panting heavily, especially the immortal destiny physique, whose entire body was spasming. His soul light was dim, and he looked as if he had a serious illness. He was rather miserable. The three of them stared at Chu Feng as if they had seen a living ghost. Long time no see, you three. Ouyang Feng was very despicable. He still waved at the other party under such circumstances and greeted them enthusiastically. After that, the five-color divine light flashed, and they disappeared from this place once more as they swiftly went far away. Ying Zhixian was fighting with her life on the line. She knew that the other party's divine traversal talisman was formidable and could pursue them very far. She reckoned that they could possibly go up to 50,000 kilometers. What's going on? The purple-haired youth, in his original position, was suspicious. However, they were horrified in the next moment. Then, they broke out in curses because those 50 golden arhats had caught up to them, and the three of them were the first to bear the brunt. Dao brother, can you still use the immortal destiny physique light? The purple-haired youth was anxious. With a ripping sound, an arrow flew over. The three of them dodged with extreme speed, but after that arrow exploded in this place, they were still battered and exhausted as their soul light burned. This won't do. I'm done for. The immortal destiny physique panted heavily. We'll help you. The immortal destiny physique and the purple-haired youth urged their soul light with all their might to help him use that supreme divine technique. Bang! Before the 8 arrows flew over together, they finally disappeared from this place. In the end, a huge explosion occurred where they were, and the mountains and rivers collapsed. The ground caved in and magma surged violently. This was enough to prove the destructive power of the arrows. At this moment, Chu Feng grabbed onto Ying Zhixian's shoulders and was urging his soul light with all his might to replenish her vitality. If not, Ying Zhixian wouldn't be able to hold on at all. Her soul light was about to be exhausted after using it so many times in succession. At this moment, they had already fled nearly 10,000 kilometers away. They even changed directions several times along the way and finally broke away from their pursuers for the time being. In front of them, an old forest was densely covered with ancient trees that towered into the sky. They could vaguely hear the roars of giant beasts, which were extremely terrifying. There was even primal chaos, chi, emitting from the mountain peak in the distance. What was this place? There was actually primal chaos, chi, overflowing in all directions. It felt very astonishing. Whatever, let's hide in the forest first. We have to heal our injuries quickly and consume the sacred medicine, shouted Ouyang Feng. Everything was because of the sacred medicine and the divine beast blood. They had narrowly escaped death along the way, so they had to enjoy the great medicine as soon as possible. Otherwise, not only would they become weaker and weaker, but they would also help others and have these fortunes snatched away. After hiding in the forest, Chu Feng quickly set up a domain to conceal them and isolate their auras from the outside world. From plucking the sacred medicine to escaping, it was a narrow escape. We've finally broken away from that group of grandsons for the time being. We have to wash away the yin qi on our bodies as soon as possible, said Ouyang Feng. Ying Zhixian's soul light was dim, and she completely relied on Ying Xiaoxiao to support her. Chu Feng also went to help and passed over a dozen strands of soul light to her again to help stabilize her injured body. Ying Zhixian's body trembled slightly because they were all in soul form. This kind of contact was too intimate, and it was equivalent to touching her life imprint. Ying Xiaoxiao was about to cry. She was extremely worried as she called out to her older sister. Don't be afraid. We have the sacred medicine. Once we consume it, We'll recover no matter how serious our injuries are, said Ouyang Feng. That's right. Don't worry. Chu Feng also consoled her. Indeed, it's nothing much. It's precisely because we have the sacred medicine in hand that I dare to continuously use the five-color divine light. Otherwise, this would really be courting death. Even though Ying Zhexian's gaze was dim, she wasn't worried in the slightest. Her shoulders swayed as she gently struggled free from Chu Feng's hands. After that, the 3 spatial bracelets were opened and 5 stalks of sacred medicine appeared. Even if each person took 1 stalk, there was still 1 left, which was extremely sufficient. However, when they wanted to consume the sacred medicine, they were a little helpless. They didn't have corporeal bodies and were only in soul form. But according to what Ying Zhexian said, even soul light could absorb the corresponding beneficial substances from medicinal herbs of this rank. Otherwise, how could they be called sacred medicine? But this would definitely be an incomparably waste because they simply couldn't absorb the parts that were valuable to their corporeal bodies. Ouyang Feng really wanted to cry. His face was full of regret as he said, "If this great lord's corporeal body was here, I would definitely undergo an intense transformation and rapidly increase my realm just by relying on this medicine. This kind of great medicine would have an effect even if a quasi-saint were to consume it, let alone people at their level." Chu Feng chose that golden sacred medicine. Ying Zhexian chose that silver one. Ying Xiaoxiao hugged a purple one, and Ouyang Feng chose that blue and lustrous one. The few sacred medicines were similar. They all had 8 leaves, and their entire bodies were resplendent and sparkling. A dense medicinal fragrance pervaded the air, and they could smell it even if they were in soul form. Therefore, this definitely had the greatest benefit to their divine souls. What a pity! If they had 9 leaves, the medicinal strength of these 5 stalks of medicine could be increased tenfold. Ying Zhexian was slightly regretful. If they had 9 leaves, then they would be completely mature. They would be similar to the legendary Kuan bloodgrass and Lin bloodgrass, which would be exceptionally astonishing. Of course, since they were born in this world, they would be fused with endless yang qi. Presumably, their medicinal effects would be even more astonishing than medicinal herbs of the same level in the yang realm. After a short while, Ying Zhexian only refined a small half of the leaf, and her soul injury was healed. She was no longer dispirited and dim, and she started to be full of energy. This was simply a divine effect. On the other hand, Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng only refined a corner of the leaf, and the spiritual energy they lost earlier was replenished. Moreover, they felt their divine souls scorching at this moment, as if they were about to be ignited, because this sacred medicine contained incomparably abundant and dense yang qi. However, it was still considered mild, and this kind of scorching yang qi didn't harm people. As expected of a sacred medicine, Chu Feng gasped in admiration. At this moment, Ouyang Feng took out the divine beast blood and divided the spoils of war equally. After that, he impatiently used his portion and took out a drop of blood surging with scarlet mist to pour it on his body. In a split second, he let out a miserable shriek as black smoke emitted from his entire body. It was as if his entire body was dissolving, and a section of it was burned off in a short while. This unforeseen event horrified everyone. "To hell with this divine beast blood," he roared. It was too painful, and he felt as if his soul was being split open. Chu Feng couldn't help him at all. He couldn't extinguish that blood-colored light flame, even if he used his secret technique. He could only watch helplessly as Ouyang Feng rolled all over the ground. In the end, the light flame formed by the divine beast blood vanished, and Ouyang Feng's body no longer emitted black smoke. His entire body shrunk by a size, and one could well imagine how serious the damage to his soul force was. "I was corroded by the beast blood just now. It's too terrifying, and my soul force has decreased. This is a fatal soul poison." He was indignant. "That's not right. Your yin qi has decreased, and the yang qi on your body has become much denser." Chu Feng stared at him. Ouyang Feng was startled, and then he was delighted as he said, I was in unbearable pain just now, but now my entire body feels warm and comfortable. Ing Jiaxian said, "This is a great fortune. The divine beast blood tempers the soul and washes away the yin qi, but it also obliterates the portion of spiritual energy that is too much yin qi. But with the sacred medicine, it can replenish the spiritual energy that has yang qi in it without end." When they heard this, they pondered for a moment. That was indeed the case, and they were immediately overjoyed. Ouyang Feng was incomparably excited as he said, "I'll use this to wash away all the yin qi and strengthen my soul. From now on, I'll be full of yang qi and won't be suppressed by the creatures of this world." Chu Feng was lost in thought. This kind of fortune was too shocking. After that, he pondered that since his soul would turn into pure yang and his spiritual energy would increase sharply, he should really consider cultivating the 10 ultimate techniques and the other divine abilities now. After that, he thickened his face and asked Ing Jiaxian if it was good to cultivate the 5-color divine light. "You want to ask how to cultivate it, right? Do you want to pass on the scripture?" Ing Jiaxian asked indifferently. Chu Feng's old face turned slightly red. He really had this kind of plan, and he couldn't hide anything in front of this powerful woman. "Ask me, I'll tell you." The silver-haired little Lolita giggled at the side. "Teach me too. I'll take revenge on that grandson, Pu Lin, later." Ouyang Feng said with a blush on his face. The silver-haired little Lolita laughed and said, "You're really suited to cultivate the 5-color divine light. When the swan spreads its wings, 5 divine lights will fly out and wash away all living things. It's rather fitting." Ing Jiaxian looked at Chu Feng and said, "Actually, there's no harm in passing on the peerless divine technique like the 5-color divine light to you." "Really?" Chu Feng was astonished. This kind of secret technique definitely had a secret scripture apart from the conditions that everyone knew about. This was a secret that couldn't be passed on, so how could ordinary people be willing to part with it? Ing Jiaxian couldn't really want to choose him as her Tao companion, right? Chu Feng let his imagination run wild. However, Ing Jiaxian's words made him sober, and his old face turned slightly red. "You can only use the scripture of the 5-color divine light in this world. You'll forget everything when you return to our original universe." "That's true." Chu Feng was melancholy, but when he thought of the soul bell, his heart stirred. Perhaps there was a chance that he could retain his memories and return. "Then are there any more powerful divine techniques?" asked Chu Feng. "The 5-color divine light can contend with those who have cultivated the 10 ultimate techniques without falling into a disadvantageous position. It's already the strongest, yet you still want an even stronger one?" Ing Xiaoxiao muttered. She said that he was too greedy and that it was impossible for there to be an even more powerful one. "Yes, let me think. There really is a kind of forbidden divine technique that can surpass the 5-color divine light," Ing Jiaxian suddenly said. "Ah, there really is one." Chu Feng was gobsmacked. "Yes, it's called the wonderful 7 treasures technique. It's just a pity that no one has been able to successfully cultivate it since ancient times. It's a supreme divine technique in the Yang realm," said Ing Jiaxian. "No one had successfully cultivated it in the Yang realm, and legend had it that only 1 or 2 people had successfully cultivated it in the Yang realm because the requirements were too harsh." Chu Feng's heart trembled. The quasi-immortal race's accumulation was indeed somewhat terrifying. They even knew about this kind of forbidden divine technique. "Do you have a scripture?" he probed. Chapter 797. Why wouldn't I? Why would I give up such a world-shaking technique when it's right in front of me? Chu Feng rubbed his palms together. The silver-haired Lolita curled her lips and said, "Look at you. Your eyes are glowing like a wolf." Chu Feng smiled in embarrassment. He was only excited for a moment because, according to what Ing Jiaxian said, the wonderful 7 treasures technique was too evil. Even the 5-color divine light that was known to be able to wipe out all living things wasn't a match for it. It was truly heaven-defying. Ouyang Feng was also excited as he urged Ing Jiaxian to explain the wonderful 7 treasures technique in detail. He wanted to know where it came from and why it was so powerful. Ing Jiaxian smiled and said, "It's very simple. You'll know how powerful it is if you compare it with the five-color divine light. The wonderful seven treasures technique corresponds to seven different soul lights. Nothing in the world can escape its sweeping power. According to what she said, this technique had two more soul lights than the five-color divine light. It wasn't a simple relationship of addition and subtraction, but a difference in quality. Ouyang Feng scratched his ears and cheeks as he listened. He wished he could learn it immediately, but Ing Zhexian's words made him depressed. If you want to learn the wonderful seven treasures technique, you must have the seven rarest immortal clouds and divine mists in the world. Only with these rare materials as a catalyst can it be cultivated successfully. In the end, the Cloud Eater realm was too important. It was the foundation and source of deducing divine techniques. In this realm, the number of special and rare divine clouds and immortal mists one could find would determine how many kinds of battle techniques one could cultivate. The so-called 10 ultimate techniques came about this way. They needed 10 kinds of rare treasures. However, the appearance of one technique to break 10,000 techniques and the undefeated battle record of the five-color divine light proved to the world that the 10 ultimate techniques couldn't be the best. There were still others who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Drinking from the six energies, carrying the morning glow with the positive yawn. Even in the end of days, the ancients had this kind of understanding after the spiritual qi on earth dried up. It was clear how important it was to consume clouds and qi. In the depths of the sea of stars where evolved civilizations were highly developed, the Cloud Eater realm was defined as the foundation of techniques and the source of divine techniques. Ouyang Feng stared helplessly, but there was nothing he could do. He had also absorbed a few special lights, but they were in his body and couldn't be brought in. Ing Zhexian shook her head and said, "The rarest divine radiance and immortal mist can be fused with one's soul and brought in. They're priceless. Otherwise, how could they be called rare treasures of the world?" Ouyang Feng's face immediately collapsed. He didn't even have the qualifications to learn this wonderful technique. Chu Feng also frowned. This was too harsh. Ing Xiao teased and said, "It's very hard to find even one of them, let alone 7. It looks like you guys still haven't figured out the definition of a so-called rare treasure. How rare and precious can it be?" Ouyang Feng was unconvinced. The silver-haired Lolita snorted and flung the back of her head at him. Then, she wanted to tell Chu Feng, the Tao race is strong, right? They are one of the best in our universe. However, they were only able to help Taoist Jean Lin find a type of source substance that could be called a rare treasure of heaven and earth. That was why he embarked on the path of using one technique to break all techniques. He's using that source qi to absorb other ordinary multicolored lights and divine mist to strengthen himself. At this moment, even Chu Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. Wasn't the so-called rare treasure of the world too hard to find? Ing Zhexian said, "This kind of thing can be chanced upon, but not sought. Even if you have the heart to look for it, you might not necessarily encounter one in 1,000 lifetimes." Chu Feng completely gave up. This was too harsh. No wonder no one could successfully cultivate the wonderful 7 treasures technique. Something's wrong. Wait a moment. You've cultivated the 5-color divine light. Could it be that you've found 5 types of rare treasures of the world? Chu Feng was bewildered. If that was the case, the quasi-immortal race was too terrifying. I've indeed found 5 types of bizarre substances. They can barely be considered precious, but they can't be considered rare treasures. Ing Zhexian shook her head. The 5 substances that the quasi-immortal race helped her find were considered rare in the world. They represented 5 different attributes and just happened to meet the requirements to cultivate the 5-color divine light. However, they could only be considered quasi-rare treasures of the world. They were still a step away from genuine rare substances, but they could already be used to cultivate divine techniques. The quasi-immortal race is so powerful, yet they can only barely find rare substances. How can they let other people live? Ouyang Feng grumbled. The silver-haired little Lolita had the appearance of a little adult. She raised her chin and said, "Yes. Taoist Jin Lin is the only one who has genuine rare substances at the moment. Sure, Hong might have some, but you might only be able to gather 5 of them unless you completely ransack the 10 great treasures technique. She blinked her large eyes and added, besides, these rare substances pay particular attention to their attributes. They can only be used together if they're compatible. If their attributes aren't right, it'll be useless even if you defy the heavens and really find 7 types of rare treasures of the world. This perverted world really makes people despair. Ouyang Feng sighed with a dejected look on his face. This kind of prerequisite wasn't just harsh. It was practically a dead end. There was simply no way to cultivate it. That's why people from the Yang realm are said to be savage. It's recorded on the prehistoric stone tablet that someone actually succeeded in cultivating it. It makes people envious, jealous, and hateful. Ying Xiaoxiao pouted and had an unresigned look on her face. Chu Feng also felt that he was at his wit's end. If he wanted to learn the wonderful 7 treasures technique, just the prerequisite alone was too perverse. He felt that the 2 divine lights on his body should be extraordinary and had a knack for it, but it was still too far away from the number 7. Chu Feng said, "There's nothing to say. The sacred medicine and the divine beast's blood are right in front of us. Let's quickly cleanse ourselves of the yin qi and increase our strength first. To hell with whatever wonderful 7 treasures technique or 8 revolutions mysterious technique." Ouyang Feng rather agreed. The fortune was right in front of him, so it was more important to grab hold of what was by his side first. Ancient trees towered into the sky in this area, and it was full of vitality. Primal chaos pervaded the air on the mountain peak in the distance, and the roars of beasts in the depths of the dense forest shook the heavens. Chu Feng had already laid down a domain to isolate this place from the outside world. After that, he adjusted it again so that the sounds outside couldn't be heard and they were completely isolated. Rip! Ow! Ouyang Feng was torturing himself as he smeared the muddy divine beast's blood on his body. In the end, black smoke surged and he looked like he was burning. After that, he wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf because he was in unbearable pain. "It's too scary. I don't want to baptize my soul." Ying Xiaoxiao's face turned pale as she was quite frightened. Ying Zhixian said, "You'll only be able to continue living if you cleanse your body of yin qi. Otherwise, you'll be turned into ashes the next time you meet Pu Lin and he shoots an arrow at you. Then I'll take it slow." "Ah, it hurts. Elder sister, what are you doing?" "I'm not ready yet. I'm burning." "Ah, save me. The most talented little fairy is about to be cooked." The silver-haired little Lolita wailed as she kicked her legs and waved her hands. She rolled around in Ying Zhixian's embrace miserably. In reality, Ying Zhixian only dripped a trace of divine beast blood on her body. It couldn't even be considered a complete drop. Furthermore, she smeared it evenly with a secret technique. It could be said that she was really gentle and careful to the extreme. She only smeared a little bit of it on her body, so much so that her body didn't emit green smoke and the yin qi wasn't cleansed out. In the end, she was so exaggerated as she rolled around, threw a tantrum, and shrieked miserably again and again. She thought she had sprinkled divine beast blood all over her body, but in reality, that wasn't the case at all. Chu Feng found it strange and wanted to laugh. Ouyang Feng was even worse. He walked over and said viciously, "Oh no, my ear has been burned. Oh my God, my nose has also been burned away by the divine beast blood. Oh my God, it hurts so much. My ear and my nose are all gone. It hurts so much. Elder sister, I don't want to live anymore." Ying Xiaoxiao closed her eyes as she rolled around in her elder sister's embrace. She wailed as if her heart and lungs were being torn apart. Ying Zhixin glared at Toad. A streak of 5-colored divine light swept past and sent him flying. "You grew another ear. Oh no, you grew 2 noses." Chu Feng teased this little girl. The silver-haired little Lolita clearly knew something was wrong. She crawled up with a gurgle, rubbed her eyes, and touched her nose. She was flustered and exasperated as she fought with Chu Feng and Toad with all her might. "You two are too bad. You're so lacking in morals." Evidently, this kind of relaxation could only last for a short while. After that, not to mention Xiao Xiao, even Chu Feng was growling in a low voice. After the bright and scarlet divine beast's blood drenched his body, that kind of pain was simply unbearable. What was a hellish torture? This was it now. It was tantamount to them refining their souls. Ouyang Feng howled in grief as he rolled all over the ground. He was indeed rather exaggerated as he completely indulged himself. As long as he was in pain, he would roll around without a care for his image. On the other side, after Ing Zhixian was submerged in the blazing scarlet light, she trembled incessantly. She let out a soft sound a few times as she endured the pain with great difficulty. Ing Xiaoxiao's eyes were brimming with tears. She was circulating the incomplete Dameng breathing technique, which was passed down from Dameng Pure Land. It hypnotized herself so that she wouldn't feel pain before baptizing her soul. For a day and a night, they hovered between life and death. Green and black smoke rose ceaselessly in this domain as their yin qi was burned away. At the same time, they were constantly consuming sacred medicines. The medicinal effects were astonishing. Every time their souls dimmed, they would be full of vigor again after being replenished by medicinal herbs. Moreover, their yang qi was increasing. When the second day arrived, they heaved a sigh of relief. It was extremely effective as each of their yin qi sharply decreased by more than 80%. Furthermore, there was still an abundance of sacred medicines and divine beast blood. They were more frugal than they had imagined, and it seemed like it was enough for them to refine themselves into pure yang souls. After relaxing a little, Chu Feng laid there and didn't want to move anymore. At this stage, baptizing their yin qi shouldn't be a problem. Next, they really had to consider practicing some kind of divine technique. Unfortunately, the threshold for the wonderful 7 treasures technique was too high. Who could wait until all kinds of conditions were ripe before practicing it? Ferrying, are there any divine techniques that can be practiced using 2 kinds of precious substances as catalysts? Asked Chu Feng. The wisp of qi he obtained in purgatory should be very special and should be considered a rare substance. He didn't know whether it was a rare treasure or not. Yes. Ing Zhixian's reply was very concise. There really is. For example, Chu Feng became spirited. After the 2 kinds of immortal qi of yin and yang are combined, they can form yin and yang qi that emits yin and yang light that can easily obliterate the opponent. Ing Zhixian gave an example. Once the yin-yang divine light was successfully practiced, it would simply be unstoppable. The specific moves were also very mature. For example, it could evolve yin-yang scissors that could cut a myriad of weapons. It could evolve into a yin-yang furnace that could refine all enemies into flying ashes. In short, these 2 kinds of rare source substances, yin and yang, were abnormally precious. Once they were integrated into the soul light for cultivation, the power would be astonishing. Furthermore, there were many mature moves with boundless wonderful uses. All right then, I'll smell the yin and yang qi. Chu Feng was brimming with confidence. Ing Xiaoxiao curled her lips and said, TSK, don't brag. Do you think it's fine to just randomly find yin and yang qi? It must be the most basic source substance of these 2 attributes. It's even rarer than other rare treasures. I just happen to want to practice this kind of divine technique, said Chu Feng with a smile. Young man, don't bite off more than you can chew. You have to be down to earth. It's very difficult to find these 2 attributes of yin and yang qi. Ing Xiaoxiao had an air of being proud of her age and experience. She rolled her eyes and said, otherwise, my elder sister would have long gone to practice the wonderful 7 treasures technique. Chu Feng was astonished and said, is there still a connection between the 5-color divine light and yin and yang qi? Of course. If there's yin-yang divine light, then it'll be the wonderful 7 treasures technique when they're added together. Ing Xiaoxiao mumbled. After that, she teased him again and said, if you have yin-yang divine light, You might as well become my elder sister's Tao companion and cultivate together. You'll be able to unleash the wonderful 7 treasures technique if you join hands. When that time comes, you'll definitely be unparalleled under the heavens. That's reasonable. I can consider it. Chu Feng nodded repeatedly. After that, Ying Xiaoxiao screamed miserably. She covered her head with tears in her eyes. She was taught a lesson by her elder sister, and the big bump appeared on her forehead. She was very unconvinced. She pouted and said, "I'm just saying it casually. Besides, how could he possibly find 2 kinds of rare treasures of yin and yang? Even the Tao race only found 1 kind of rare treasure of the 5 elements for Jin Lin. Great demon, Chu Feng definitely doesn't have it." "I really do have it." Chu Feng coughed. Chapter 798. I'll pay you 10 times for a fake, but what if you can't make the decision here? Chu Feng's skin was so thick that Ouyang Feng couldn't stand it anymore. He was actually arguing with the silver-haired little Lolita. Toad rolled his eyes and crossed his arms. He carried the black tortoise shell on his back as he took swan steps and slanted his eyes at him with a look of disdain. The silver-haired little Lolita spoke with justice and said, "Of course it's true. I'll also pay you 10 times for a fake. Other than my biological elder sister, I also have a bunch of pretty female cousins." After that, she was miserable. She was picked up and beaten by Ying Zhixin. She was a soul anyway, so she directly pulled her into the air and ruthlessly taught her a lesson. "It hurts, it hurts. Elder sister, stop hitting me. I'm doing this for your own good. Think about it. If he really has yin and yang qi, you can use the wonderful 7 treasures technique after you become Tao companions and cultivate together. You can sweep through the world. Why don't you appreciate it?" It hurts." "Stop. Ying Zhixin, if you hit me again, I'll tell them how thin your waist is, how long your legs are, and how perky your buttocks are. I'll tell them the exact size." Ying Xiaoxiao couldn't stand the beating anymore. She bared her teeth and threatened as she struggled with all her might. Bang, bang, bang. This caused her to be beaten up again. Ouyang Feng walked gracefully with swan steps and carried the black tortoise shell on his back. He walked past her and asked softly, "You can tell me because she hit you again. Go to hell, Jun Tuo's son. Get lost. Boo-hoo, it hurts." Ying Xiaoxiao wiped her tears. Mother asterisk cur. Ouyang Feng spread his wings like a swan and was about to make a move, but he was sent flying by the 5-color divine light. After that, Chu Feng walked over and smiled gracefully. He wanted to plead for leniency. After all, this silver-haired little Lolita had good intentions and wanted to give her elder sister to him. However, Ying Xiaoxiao's words made his face darken. "Human trafficker, I can only be bribed to this point. Don't look for me if something like this happens again." Chu Feng was stunned and froze on the spot. What was going on? Ying Zhixin's murderous gaze swept over. Her beautiful eyes flickered with multicolored light. It was too resplendent. Chu Feng immediately knew that the damned kid had dragged him down with him so that he wouldn't get beaten up. Then, he glared at her and suggested, "Search her soul. We're going to wash away the yin energy anyway. Searching her soul is also a way to temper her. Let's see if she's lying or if I'm trying to bribe her." "Demon Chu Feng, you're too vicious." I cry. "Sister, don't hit me. Didn't I say you couldn't get married? I'm worried about you." "Ouch, it hurts." "It's not that she can't get married. How could the 3rd most beautiful woman in the universe not be able to get married?" "I'm afraid that you'll fall into a pit of fire and marry anyone you like. That's why I want to find you a good Tao companion who can cultivate together with you. Look, this was originally my collection of handsome young men, and now I'm giving them to you. Aren't we sisters good enough?" "Ah, you're still hitting me? Ying Zhixin, I'll fight it out with you." "Boo-hoo, I can't win. I'm so pitiful." Ying Xiaoxiao wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. Then, she finally found an opportunity to escape. She hung onto Chu Feng's body all of a sudden and shouted, "Hurry up and save me." Chu Feng picked her up and taught her a lesson on her elder sister's behalf. Ying Xiaoxiao was fuming and her eyes were spitting fire. She simply wanted to eat Chu Feng. What Ing Zhixian said next made Chu Feng stare blankly. If you really have yin and yang qi, these two kinds of rare and precious substances, we might be able to study them together and see if we can restore the wonderful seven treasures technique. Chu Feng was in a daze. He swallowed a mouthful of soul saliva with all his might and almost choked on it. Ing Xiaoxiao was immediately pissed off. She was extremely indignant as she said, "Are you still my biological sister? I introduced Demon Chu to you for your own good. In the end, you beat me up so cruelly, yet you still kindly accepted him in the end. What nonsense are you talking about?" Ing Zhixian gave her a big bump on her forehead again. She was in so much pain that she rolled around shamelessly in the forest and refused to get up. "I'm just purely researching the wonderful seven treasures technique with him. You're just a wimpy brat, and your thoughts are too complicated." Ing Zhixian rebuked her. "TSK, do you think I believe you?" "All right, even if I believe you, I don't believe that big-tailed wolf, Chu Feng. Based on the temperament of this human trafficker and bandit, not even a blade of grass will grow wherever he goes. Will he let you go?" "Elder sister, I'm not saying this, but you can't escape from the palm of his hand. Mother asterisk Kerr." Chu Feng's face couldn't be any darker at the side. His reputation had been completely ruined by this little girl. "You're wrong, elder sister. You can't be doing this voluntarily, right?" the silver-haired little Lolita added. In the end, her elder sister Ing Zhixian's face darkened as well. The silver-haired little Lolita rolled and crawled up to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. At the same time, she changed the topic as she looked at Chu Feng and said, "Come, let's take a look at your so-called two kinds of rare materials." Chu Feng said, "The two materials I obtained are suspected to have fused with my corporeal body, but they might also have been brought over by my soul. I don't know how to release and examine them. This is very simple." Ing Xiaoxiao taught him a mnemonic incantation without needing Ing Zhixian to say anything. The quasi-mortal race's foundation could be seen at a glance. Legend had it that their ancestors came from the Yang realm, and there was even an ancestral tablet in this race that had some old matters inscribed on it. Chu Feng acted according to the law, and his soul resonated. Immediately, he saw a wisp of multicolored light soar up, followed by another wisp. They were clearly separated, and their attributes repelled each other. At this moment, Ing Xiaoxiao's eyes stared blankly as she felt that it wasn't enough. Two wisps of multicolored light flickered indeterminately. They blazed brightly and dimmed at times as they bobbed up and down in Chu Feng's soul light. One wisp was the light of purgatory. Without a doubt, its attribute was Yin. The other wisp originated from the Yang realm seed. Back then, when he was in seclusion in Blazing Phoenix City's abode in seclusion, Chu Feng let the Yang realm seed take root and sprout. In the end, it fed him a wisp of qi. At that time, he used this wisp of qi to cultivate a murderous spirit technique. Ing Zhixian had a grave expression on her face as she personally approached and carefully sensed the two wisps of qi. In the end, her expression changed. They're rare and precious substances, and they really have yin and yang attributes. After she said that, the silver-haired little Lolita immediately cried out in surprise. After that, she threw herself onto Chu Feng's body like a little money grubber and said, "Brother-in-law, let me see. Lend it to me to cultivate for 100 years. She even called him brother-in-law. After that, he looked at Ing Zhixian. He was prepared to witness the scene of that damn child getting beaten up again to his satisfaction. Ing Xiaoxiao was indeed beaten up again, but it didn't last long. Chu Feng saved her. "You're really shielding your sister-in-law." Ouyang Feng added to the chaos. "Stay on one side." Chu Feng kicked him away and humbly asked Ing Zhixian for advice on how to cultivate the supreme secret canon together. Of course, he accidentally said the word together and cultivate together as dual, which directly attracted a murderous gaze. Especially when the five-color divine light pervaded the air, it almost bombarded his head. "I misspoke. Let's still talk about cultivation." "Only Ouyang Feng loves to listen to romantic talk," said Chu Feng. I hashtag in percent and asterisk. The toad cursed. What are you dawdling about for? Move aside. I'm discussing the dual cultivation method with Fairy Ying, Chu Feng said in all seriousness as he pushed him to the side. Ouyang Feng stomped his feet and cursed. Why do you always make me take the blame? You're carrying a big black pot on your back. You're going around everywhere and sticking your head out to look around. Who can you blame? Chu Feng gave him a sidelong glance. Oh my, you're infuriating Uncle Ouyang. This is the black tortoise divine armor. Okay. The toad was extremely unconvinced and really wanted to fight him to the death. After that, Chu Feng earnestly asked Ying Zhixin for guidance. He really hoped to learn the yin-yang light and grasp a trump card so that he could restore the wonderful seven treasures technique. Ying Zhixin said, whether it's the yin-yang light or the five-color divine light, we have to start from the wonderful seven treasures technique. She was graceful, beautiful, and peerless in style. She had an immortal aura about her, as she softly explained that the yin-yang light and the five-color divine light were separated from the wonderful seven treasures technique. Therefore, their divine might was world-shocking. This made Chu Feng incomparably solemn. He increasingly felt that the so-called wonderful seven treasures technique was too extraordinary. Once it was cultivated, it would most likely be truly unfathomable. But very soon, he was stunned when Ying Zhixin talked about the corresponding seven scriptures of the wonderful seven treasures technique. That was because some of the scriptures seemed familiar. Why do I feel that the demon ox fist and the demon flood dragon fist are included? He was very surprised. After that, he thought of what Yellow Cattle said to him back then. Each of the seven fist techniques was very powerful, but the truly terrifying part was that the seven fist techniques were combined. That would be a horrifying mess that he didn't dare to imagine. At the same time, Yellow Cattle also said that the seven techniques were originally one. Back then, the seven great sages discovered a strange tree that circulated with runes. The seven great sages each took a branch to cultivate. Later on, the demon ox fist, the demon flood dragon fist, the demon rock fist, and so on came into being. Seven techniques that appeared on a tree. This is the wonderful seven treasures technique. Evidently, Ying Zhixin knew what he was thinking. She explained, in reality, the Tao race, the Buddhist race, and the corpse race all made their move later on. They wanted to collect that tree and study it as a whole. It was obvious that the seven great sages couldn't protect the branches they obtained at all. They were snatched away. Later on, the quasi-immortal race also attacked and cleverly snatched the strange tree that was pieced together from the corpse race. In reality, that was an energy tree that manifested a technique. The fist technique researched by the seven great sages is indeed world-shocking, and its might is matchless, but they were still a level off. They didn't research the final seven scriptures and fuse them together. It wasn't a fist technique, but the wonderful seven treasures technique. This thing was taken away by the quasi-immortal race. Moreover, they had reason to suspect that the energy tree might be a treasure left behind by their primogenitor when he fled from the Yang realm. That was because a strange tree was mentioned on their ancestral tablet, but the records weren't clear. Your ancestor couldn't have escaped from the Yang realm to the Nether realm because he was guilty of possessing a valuable item and took away that strange tree, right? Chu Feng was suspicious. That's a possibility. My race also speculated this way. Ying Zhixin nodded. What the truth was in the end wasn't important now. So many years had passed, so who would still remember what happened back then? Of course, once they entered the Yang realm, it would be hard to say. The powerhouses of the Yang realm were too powerful. They would definitely be rather heaven-defying if they dared to pursue and kill someone who possessed the wonderful seven treasures technique. You were able to research the resonance technique from the demon ox fist and the spiral technique from the demon flood dragon fist. You're truly impressive. Ying Zhixin sighed. Chu Feng already told her the truth and didn't conceal anything. He said that he had learned the demon ox fist and the demon flood dragon fist. Next, Chu Feng seriously memorized the wonderful seven treasures technique, which was also the seven short scriptures. He felt that this was something comparable to the top-notch breathing technique in the yang realm. It said that once the supreme breathing technique is cultivated to the end, divine might will surge and wonderful techniques will naturally form. But it's probably unrealistic to want to develop the wonderful 7 treasures technique. Chu Feng believed that the value of the wonderful 7 treasures technique couldn't be estimated. Next, he seriously analyzed 2 kinds of divine techniques from the wonderful 7 treasures technique to correspond with his own yin and yang qi and studied them with great concentration. During this process, he smeared the divine beast blood on it and continued to refine the yin qi in his soul. Studying the wonderful technique like this was tantamount to distracting his attention so that he wouldn't be in so much pain. 2 days later, Chu Feng exhausted the divine beast blood. He was sure that he had cleansed himself of the yin qi and that the sacred medicine had also been eaten up. At this moment, his yang qi was vigorous and intense. He couldn't sense any yin spirit aura at all, and his soul light was incomparably resplendent. Boom! As he urged his soul light, he was like a blazing sun that illuminated this part of the mountain forest. Yang qi surged and was incomparably terrifying. Compared to before, he was a completely different person. Other than that, Chu Feng actually unleashed the initial stage of the yin-yang light, which made Ing Xiao Xiao cry out in surprise. She even shouted that he was a level stronger than Ing Wudi. "Fairy, let's cultivate together." Chu Feng smiled and looked at Ing Zhixian. He really wanted to try and see if he could reproduce the might of the wonderful 7 treasures technique. At the same time, several thousand kilometers away, Pu Lin's hair was disheveled and his eyes were bloodshot. He was incomparably exhausted, and his heart was filled with rage. His gaze was incomparably terrifying. During these 3 days, he led his troops to search for Chu Feng and the others in a frenzy. He was unable to restrain his anger because he was worried that those people had consumed all the divine beast blood and sacred medicine. Chapter 799. Ing Zhixian was graceful like a divine lotus swaying in the wind. Her figure was exceptionally moving as she said to Chu Feng, "Figure out the yin-yang light by yourself first. You'll only be able to study it with me after you've achieved a small success." This was her request to Chu Feng. If he wanted to study the wonderful 7 treasures technique with her, he had to enter the rudiments first. Ing Zhixian had already cultivated the 5-color divine light to the rudiments, whereas Chu Feng was only at the beginning. He still couldn't be considered to have achieved success, so he needed to cultivate a step further and achieve something. Ing Xiao Xiao cried out, "Oh my God, this big-tailed wolf really wants to make a move on Ing Zhixian. Even the gods can't stop him. What a good excuse to study the wonderful 7 treasures technique together. But this fellow doesn't even leave a blade of grass behind wherever he goes. Moreover, he's facing the 3rd most exceptional beauty under the starry skies. He's destined to eat her alive and not even spit out her bones." Ing Xiao Xiao had an expression of bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying mankind. She held her forehead with a sorrowful expression as though she was extremely merciful. Unfortunately, she was too young and was nothing more than a silver-haired Lolita. The impression she gave others was too tender and too inexperienced. Her words immediately made Chu Feng's face darken to the extreme. He really wanted to say that this damn child was talking nonsense and doubting his character and lacking in morals. As for Ing Zhixian, her charming face was even darker. She tidied Ing Xiao Xiao once more and grabbed her to teach her a lesson. But this damn child's mouth was too annoying. She cried and begged for mercy while saying some nonsense. For example, she called Chu Feng brother-in-law and asked him to hurry and save her. She also called him older sister, saying that she was putting herself in his older sister's shoes. Chu Feng studied it with great concentration. The more he pondered, the more profound this yin-yang light became. Once this technique was successfully cultivated, it would be abnormally terrifying. When he tried it, a mountaintop was actually swept away by him with a sweep. This was too shocking. If it was used on a person's physical body or soul, Wouldn't that creature's body and soul be completely annihilated? Chu Feng was awestruck and sighed inwardly. Yin and Yang Qi were worthy of being rare substances of heaven and earth. They could be used to cultivate one of the world's most powerful divine techniques. Chu Feng was trying to figure it out, researching it. This type of divine technique was too terrifying, exceptionally intimidating. Even he himself was scared stiff. It was actually this divine and awe-inspiring. He felt that if he really succeeded in cultivating it, not to mention the wonderful seven treasures technique, just the light of yin and yang would be enough for him to toss and turn. It would be enough for him to move unhindered in the universe and sweep through all his opponents. Then, Chu Feng carefully studied and pondered. He learned very quickly because this was not the first time he had come into contact with this kind of scripture. After all, he had learned the demon ox fist and the demon flood dragon fist, which were considered to be two of the seven scriptures of the wonderful seven treasures technique. At this time, studying the profound meaning of them was twice the result with half the effort. Chu Feng was so engrossed in it that he forgot to eat or sleep. Time seemed to have stopped for him as he was completely immersed in the yin and yang qi as he studied this wonderful technique. In the end, he unconsciously swept out a beam of divine light with a boom and shattered the domain. Only then did he wake up. At this moment, Ying Zhixian, Ouyang Feng, and Ying Xiaoxiao had already finished baptizing their souls. Every single one of them was surging with yang qi, and not a bit of yin qi attribute could be seen anymore. The three of them were suspended in midair like three small suns. They were fairly resplendent and extremely gorgeous as a misty rain of light flowed around them. They were sacred and auspicious. A blazing aura overflowed from their bodies. They were completely different and couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. As for Chu Feng himself, the feeling he gave the three of them was equally astonishing. He was like a golden blazing sun as he stood in the sky. It was too dazzling, and there was a glaring rain of light sprinkling down from his body. It dyed the entire mountain forest resplendently and turned it into a golden color as though it was cast from gold. Even though they were very far away, they still felt the scorching heat as though they were going to be set ablaze. It was as though an eternal divine furnace was towering there with raging flames and blazing soul light. Even Ying Zhixian and Ouyang Feng felt like they were being scorched when they faced Chu Feng as surging heat waves surged over violently. Several days ago, they could still be considered yin spirits in this world, still considered ghosts, but now they were simply like magma, like liquid after divine gold melted. It was too terrifying, the blazing temperature horrifying, enough to burn many yin spirits to death. Without a doubt, Chu Feng and the others had broken free from their shackles now and didn't have yin qi anymore. They were no different from the souls of the living beings in this world. If someone used arrows with yang qi to kill them again, they didn't have to worry at all. They could just resist normally. So comfortable, Ouyang Feng shouted. Now that he was moving around, even that black tortoise shell emitted wisps of yang qi. He took graceful swan steps and was as cocky as he could be. At this moment, Pu Lin was already less than 1,500 kilometers away from this place. His eyes were scarlet red, and he was really about to go crazy. He couldn't forget about the divine beast blood and the sacred medicine. He was simply about to go crazy. He couldn't bear it. If the ghost slaves in his eyes ate this sacred medicine and divine beast blood and completely refined them, that would truly be unacceptable. He despised them from the bottom of his heart and believed that Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng were nothing more than his ghost slaves. They were very lowly and simply didn't have the qualifications to fight and compete with him. He could trample them to death with a single step. Who was he? He was a dignified young noble who commanded tens of thousands of elite troops. All of them were knights at the Cloud Eater, Transformation, and Golden Body realms. He truly held a high position and was somewhat famous in the martial gods lineage. What did a few ghost slaves count for? They didn't even have yang qi. If you were to find a divine archer to hunt them down, a single arrow would be enough to make those ghost slaves explode. Their bodies and souls would be destroyed on the spot. They didn't count for anything and weren't a threat. But he couldn't find them now and was practically going crazy. If he delayed any longer, he wouldn't need a search anymore. Those ghost slaves would definitely have completely absorbed the sacred medicine and bathed in the divine beast blood. You bunch of lowly ghost slaves. I disdain your filthiness and lowliness, but you just had to touch my good fortune. You deserve to die. I'll destroy your bodies and souls, and you won't have a good death. Pu Lin uttered a malicious oath, but his heart burned when he thought of Ying Zhexian's appearance. She was the only person he could leave behind. He had never seen such a peerless beauty before. He could seize a physical body for her and nurture her. She would definitely become a stunner of the generation. In reality, Chu Feng, Ying Zhexian, and Ouyang Feng were also thinking about him at this moment. They wanted to take revenge and wipe out their grudges. They hoped to get rid of him. Haha, Great Uncle Ouyang has returned to the Yang realm. Has he completely become a creature of the Yang realm? I wonder what world this is and what kind of universe this is. It can't be the Yang realm, right? Ouyang Feng's mouth was wide open. The black tortoise shell flickered with increasingly black light as he took graceful swan steps. He had an arrogant attitude of admiring himself and returning to the Yang after withdrawing from the Yin to the Yang. At this moment, they carefully sensed their own bodies. Their spiritual energy had increased sharply. They were all at the Cloud Eater realm when they first entered this world, but their soul force had increased by several times now. Their strength was now close to the quasi-golden body realm. If they hadn't refined Yin Qi and consumed too much soul light, they would have advanced to the golden body perfection realm if they had consumed the sacred medicine normally, carrying out a transformation and cutting off all Yin Qi consumed an enormous amount of energy. But they weren't ordinary people. In addition to the wonderful techniques they grasped in the soul bell that Chu Feng possessed, they weren't afraid even if they faced someone at the golden body realm. They dared to get rid of him. Previously, a divine archer at the golden body realm was enough to kill all of them. Yang Qi surged, and they would definitely explode into pieces the moment those arrows touched them. There was no suspense. But now, everything was different. Everything had changed. I want to eliminate that Scumpu Lin. Great Uncle Ouyang feels that it won't be a problem for me to beat 10 of him with one hand. Ouyang Feng was eager to give it a try. He hadn't been idle these few days. He had learned many divine beast martial arts from the Ying sisters, and they were all trump cards. There was really nothing to say about the Ying family's foundation. The founder of the quasi-mortal race was suspected to have escaped from the Yang realm. After so many years of accumulation, there were really too many secret manuals in the race. Chu Feng warned, "Not yet. Don't be careless. Pu Lin is a young duke, so he naturally has his outstanding aspects. We've just become souls of the Yang realm, so we still have to research some impressive, wonderful techniques." After that, he went to communicate with Ying Zhexian and prepared to officially start comprehending the wonderful 7 treasures technique together. His comprehension of the Yin and Yang Qi was rather astonishing these past 2 days. He directly crossed the threshold and had a certain level of success, so he could emit the light of Yin and Yang. Ying Zhexian nodded in agreement when she saw that he had progressed to this step. She walked to the side with him and analyzed the wonderful 7 treasures technique together. "Elder sister, I'm worried for you. From now on, there might be one less pure and otherworldly young girl in this world, and one more noble woman will appear." The silver-haired little Lolita had a bemoaning and pitying look on her face as she spoke very sorrowfully. Bang! This time, she was sent flying by her elder sister's kick right away. She was merciless and could even be said to be rather violent because Ying Zhexian was really infuriated by her. She felt that this younger sister was simply incurable. She was a little mischievous, and she was too precocious. What was she thinking all day long? The silver-haired little Lolita flew away and disappeared. After that, Chu Feng obtained the profound meaning of the wonderful 7 treasures technique a step further. This was something that was on a deeper level than the 7 scriptures. It was originally a secret that the Ying clan didn't pass on. But after so many years, not a single person in the entire universe was able to successfully cultivate the wonderful seven treasures technique. Slowly, this kind of technique wasn't valued by the Ing clan and was no longer a top secret. Without a doubt, if one wanted to successfully learn the wonderful seven treasures technique, they had to possess the seven most precious substances in the world. Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian had their hands and feet pressed together. They were in intimate contact as they cultivated together. Because they needed seven kinds of substances, they had to share them. Only then could they analyze and cultivate the wonderful seven treasures technique that was known to surpass the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. But they weren't pressing together with their hands and feet of their corporeal bodies. Instead, their souls were connected. This kind of feeling was too marvelous. It was equivalent to two souls fusing together. In a split second, Ing Zhixian's body lightly trembled. Because of such an intimate connection, even her family members and closest people hadn't come into contact like this before. This was the connection of their souls. They could share some secrets with each other, and this was almost becoming a fusion of souls. At this moment, Chu Feng was studying the wonderful seven treasures technique, but he couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. No one could remain calm when facing the third, most exceptional beauty under the starry skies like this. Even if she was in her soul state, Ing Zhixian was still exceptionally charming, and her beauty was the best in the world. Her form wasn't any different from when she had a corporeal body. Her big eyes were quick-witted, her figure was slender, and her curves were undulating. She wasn't tainted by the smoke and fire of the mortal world. She was devastatingly beautiful. Chu Feng couldn't help but recall Ing Xiaoxiao's words. At that time, this little girl was going to reveal the various values of her elder sister's figure. Chu Feng couldn't help but ponder. Just how long were these long legs? In a split second, Ing Zhixian revealed a murderous gaze as she stared at him. Because their hands and feet were intimately connected together and their souls touched, they could sense each other's thoughts. Chu Feng's carelessness was truly revealed. The secrets at the bottom of his heart were directly exposed. Just how slender is her small waist? At this moment, he still hadn't come back to his senses. Yes, Ing Xiaoxiao even said that her butt is very perky. What's going on? Chu Feng let his imagination run wild. In front of him, Ing Zhixian gnashed her teeth. She really wanted to kill someone. Her hands and feet were pressed together with Chu Feng's as she stared at Chu Feng. Her quick-witted eyes were filled with murderous intent, and five-color divine light flickered. In a flash, Chu Feng was on guard because he could also sense Ing Zhixian's thoughts. He immediately came back to his senses in shock from that chilly, murderous intent. It's a misunderstanding. I was just thinking, Chu Feng explained. However, when he seriously narrated this explanation, he couldn't help but think of other things. For example, he was estimating the radian of Ing Zhixian's curves and the measurements of certain parts of her body, such as her buttocks and her towering mountain peaks. As a result, he wanted to cry. He hadn't even explained, but the other party already knew what he was thinking in his heart. Ing Zhixian's eyes were spitting fire. Her unparalleled appearance was unable to maintain that otherworldly, fairy-like temperament. I'm purely admiring you. Chu Feng was stubborn like a dead duck. Chapter 800. Ouyang Feng passed by gracefully with swan steps. He tilted his head and slanted his eyes at the two of them. You guys continue. I'm just passing by. That was what he said, but he was circling around the two of them with his shifty eyes rolling around. Chu Feng naturally had a reason to change the topic when he saw the eyesore of a black swan with a turtle shell on its back. He wanted to spit at Ouyang Feng and distract Ing Zhixian. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, Ouyang the toad immediately sensed it. Ouyang the toad attacked first, even though he moved later. Chu Feng is actually a very good person. Even though he's most fond of romance and is most fond of outstanding beauties, it's definitely pure admiration now. His eyes are as clear as crystals, and he's definitely not thinking about how long your legs are, how soft and slender your waist is, or how perky your butt is Chu Feng felt that what the toad said wasn't bad at first. He thought that some parts were very objective, such as the comment that his eyes were as clear as crystals and that he was purely admiring them. But in a split second, his face was full of black lines. This godson of Jun Tuo was clearly pretending to be loyal. He was too shameless and despicable. Wasn't what he said at the end a trap? Especially since they were all quite in line with him. He was just discovered by Ing Zhixian and exposed. Go away, Jun Tuo's son. Chu Feng clenched his teeth and wanted him to disappear quickly. Ouyang Feng didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he looked at Ing Zhixian and discovered that her jade-like face was slightly dark. He immediately reflected on himself and said, "What I said might be biased. Fairy Ying, don't overthink it. Chu Feng really isn't that kind of person." Then, with his swan-like neck raised, he proudly and elegantly strode away. Chu Feng really wanted to slap him away. This divine beast was too wicked. Bang! Ah! Ouyang Feng screamed as he was struck by a beam of five-color divine light. Damn it! Is there any justice in this world? I only said it casually and got hit. Chu Feng's eyes are glowing green. You must be thinking about how long your legs are and how you're going to hit him. Ouyang Feng was unconvinced. He was sent flying by the five-color divine light, screaming miserably. However, he still dilly-dallied endlessly, swearing to drag Chu Feng down with him. Boom! Then, he was hit by another divine light. It was Chu Feng's yin-yang light. He was beaten until he lost his temper and shut his mouth. Because he had been smashed into the ground, his mouth was full of mud. Chi! Ing Zhixian made her move again and also struck Chu Feng, but it was blocked by the yin-yang light. Chu Feng's cultivation was successful now, so his might was astonishing. Once the yin-yang light was mastered, it would not necessarily be weaker than the five-color divine light. You'd better calm down and not let your imagination run wild. Ing Zhixian was very tranquil and really had the air of an immortal. She was elegant and otherworldly, and her appearance was peerless. Her body seemed to be draped with a layer of moonlight and a ball of mist. She looked incomparably pure and holy. At this moment, her eyes were deep and beautiful. Her entire person seemed to be otherworldly, like a fairy of the moon that had descended to the mortal world. All right, let's continue cultivating together. Chu Feng nodded. However, when their feet touched and their hands touched, Chu Feng felt as though he was suffering from obsessive-compulsive disorder. He couldn't help but think about what happened just now. Ing Zhixian was speechless. What kind of person was this? He was comprehending the Tao. She really wanted to blast him with another beam of five-color divine light. At the same time, she was startled. What was he thinking? He was comparing her with Qin Luoyin. In a split second, her spirit was highly concentrated as she carefully observed Chu Feng's thoughts. After that, she couldn't help but be embarrassed as her face flushed red. That was because Chu Feng was comparing her and Qin Luoyin's waists. He suspected that there was also a display of snow-white, sparkling, and exquisite skin. Was this what he imagined, or had he really seen it before? After that, she saw Chu Feng comparing her legs with Ing Zhixian's. In a flash, she saw a pair of snow-white, sparkling, and translucent legs. They were as fine and exquisite as congealed jade. After that, it was her buttocks. He really dared to compare everything. Chu Feng immediately knew that things were going to be bad. He hurriedly took the initiative and complained first. Hey, that's not right. Fairy Ying, you're peeping at me. This isn't good. That's a private matter, all right. Contrary to his expectations, Ing Zhixian actually didn't explode this time. Instead, she calmly asked him what relationship he had with Qin Luoyin. This made Chu Feng's heart pound. The secret of purgatory couldn't have been exposed, right? This was a secret hidden in the depths of his heart. He didn't dare to open it up to the fairy in front of him. At this moment, the thoughts in the depths of his heart were instantly covered by a dense fog. He couldn't let Ing Zhixian see them. Chu Feng felt that this kind of thing couldn't be leaked. Her waist is bare. Have you seen Qin Luoyin's slender waist? Ing Zhixian asked. No, that was my visualization of Fairy Ying's slender waist. I've sinned. I admit my mistake. Ing Zhixian was stunned. The fair and moving soft body she saw was actually her own. Was it visualized by this guy? This was too hateful. He was profaning her. After that, she thought of some other parts of the snow-white, sparkling, and translucent body. Was he also visualizing her? Ing Zhixian's face immediately turned frosty. This time, she really couldn't bear it. Do you still want to comprehend the wonderful 7 treasures technique or not? As an evolver, if your willpower isn't firm and you don't have the heart to forge ahead, how can you rise and stand among the strong? How can you become one of the few people at the top of the pyramid? She restrained herself as much as possible and didn't explode this time. It could only be said that Ing Zhixian had a good temper and had other cultivation. Yet Chu Feng justified himself and said, "The nature of the Tao is in action. Where the heart is where the law is. We can't suppress ourselves. The ancients said it well. The Tao follows nature. Everything should move according to the heart." Ing Zhixian wanted to beat him to death. He was visualizing recklessly, and his thoughts weren't pure. He even found this kind of reason for himself. If the ancients knew, they would crawl out of their graves and kick him to death. Cultivate. She only uttered these 2 words before she calmed her heart again. 5-color divine light flickered in her eyes. If Chu Feng still didn't cooperate, then she would blast him away. This time, Chu Feng calmed his heart and concentrated. He knew his priorities. Now, he really needed to comprehend the Tao in peace and comprehend the kind of strongest divine technique. Once this kind of world-shaking and world-shattering wonderful technique was mastered, they would be much safer in this world. They wouldn't have to fear those divine archers at the Golden Body Realm because they could hunt and kill them. So much so that they wouldn't have to be too afraid when facing an army. The effects were astonishing. When the 2 of them calmed down and comprehended the wonderful 7 treasures technique, their soul lights connected as though they were fused together. They emitted an astonishing aura. This was a kind of indescribable energy wave that made Ouyang Feng, who was staring at them from a short distance away, palpitate and made Ing Xiao widen her eyes. With a swoosh, 7 kinds of brilliance soared from the 2 of them and revolved around them. After that, they enveloped them within. Following that, Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian's figures trembled because the connection between them became even closer. It was as though their 2 souls had fused into one. At this moment, the sound of scriptures being chanted came from their bodies. 7 kinds of scriptures and 7 runes shone at the same time and were distributed in their fused soul lights. Swoosh! This was the first time Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian tried to activate the wonderful 7 treasures technique. In a split second, 7-colored brilliance flew out. It looked extremely sacred and became the only eternal thing. Everything else lost their luster in front of it and was ignored. With a ripping sound, it swept open a crack in the void. This scene horrified Ouyang Feng, who was in the distance. If this landed on his body, he reckoned that his physical body and soul light would vanish, and he would be obliterated right away. Following that, Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian tried a few more times. The consumption was rather large, but the 2nd and 3rd times, they all failed. They only succeeded again on the 10th try. Swoosh! This time, the 7-color divine rainbow flew out and stunned the entire world. A stone mountain not far away turned into ashes in a split second and was almost annihilated. Furthermore, it was soundless. It was extremely terrifying. Once this kind of power swept over a living being, who could resist it among evolvers of the same level? However, Ing Zhixian frowned and said, "It's wrong to practice it. It's not as strong as the legends say. Apart from attacking, it should still be able to collect everything. This kind of supreme divine technique is exceptionally practical." Chu Feng originally wanted to celebrate, but he was even more shocked after hearing what she said. It could still be stronger and even more formidable. After that, he was very excited. It seemed like the wonderful 7 treasures technique could really be restored and reappear in the world. Again, Chu Feng was very proactive. Now, a wonderful technique that shook the ancients and dazzled the contemporaries was placed in front of him, and he was about to completely practice it. How could he possibly leave behind any regrets? Chi. After the two of them comprehended it together, their soul lights fused more and more thoroughly and tangled together. The two of them seemed to have become a seven-color ball of light that was hazy. There was no doubt that this kind of contact was too intimate. Even Xian, who had skin of ice and bones of jade, couldn't help but let out a light groan now. This kind of feeling was too strange and ambiguous for her. This was a trembling that reached straight to her soul. The two soul lights fused completely, and the scene was too charming and gentle. Chu Feng also let out a light groan several times. He almost couldn't restrain his heart. Their souls were practically fused together, and they were really too intimate. Elder sister, what are you groaning about? At this moment, the silver-haired little Lolita opened her mouth at an opportune time. She had an innocent and unaffected expression as she blinked her large eyes and stared at the two of them. Xian was embarrassed and annoyed. A beam of five-color divine light flew out and blasted her away. Ah, Xian, you're too much. You value your lover over your sister, and you hit me again. I'll tell mother when we get home. Xiao shouted. Not far away. Ouyang Feng was laughing. His beak was wide open as he raised his swan neck arrogantly and wretchedly. After that, he also met with tragedy. Chu Feng rapidly set up a domain and sealed him inside. Oh my God, Chu Feng, you actually locked me in a small black room. Let me out. Are you guys going to do something bad? Let me out, Ouyang Feng shouted. After that, Chu Feng set up another domain and completely isolated his voice so that it couldn't pass through. Toad was really furious in the domain. In order to facilitate his cultivation and not be disturbed any longer, Chu Feng also set up a domain for himself and Xian. The two of them sat cross-legged inside and comprehended the wonderful seven treasures technique. Elder sister, are you getting a room with someone? Are you hiding? Xiao cried out. Seal her for me. No matter how good her elder sister's temper was, she couldn't stand this damn child. She asked Chu Feng to use a domain to seal her. After a short while, Xiao also met with tragedy. She was sent into the pitch-black space where the domain was and was locked inside a small black room. The silver-haired little Lolita was unconvinced and shouted loudly, "Oh my God, I can't really have a brother-in-law, right? You guys abandoned me and were secretly alone. Something big must have happened. Xian, let me out. I'll go and protect you. Otherwise, you'll die very miserably." In a split second, Chu Feng added another domain. Xiao's voice was isolated and the whole world became quiet. After that, Chu Feng added another domain for him and Xian. They hid inside and comprehended seriously. The two of them cultivated together. As time passed, a startling change occurred. A strange tree appeared in the soul light between them. It had a total of 7 branches, which were brightly colored and incomparably divine. After this treasured tree appeared, the two of them trembled lightly and let out a light groan. Because the connection was even more intimate, all of their soul light tangled together because of the appearance of this tree. The two of them could almost be considered to have fused into one. Not to mention Chu Feng, even Xiaoxian's soul was trembling at this moment. This was practically no different from the dual cultivation in the Tao race. Their souls were in full contact like this. It was too ambiguous and intimate. This kind of experience was so strange that Xiaoxian almost cried out in fear. Chu Feng said, "Don't shout. Carefully comprehend this kind of feeling and comprehend seriously. Didn't you see that after this treasure tree appeared, our wonderful 7 treasures technique seemed to have been cultivated to the initial stage? In reality, his heart was like a capricious gallop. In the end, his soul light trembled and he was entangled with Xian. This treasure tree was indeed gorgeous. A brightly colored rain of light lingered around it, and it became increasingly divine. In the end, Xian was slightly flustered. In the process of comprehension, when Chu Feng inadvertently turned around, his lips actually touched her bright red lips. For a moment, Her body stiffened and her soul light flickered violently. Don't move. Steady yourself. Be careful of the treasured tree disappearing. Chu Feng embraced her. This was no longer the case of their hands and feet touching each other, but they were embracing each other. Seeing her face flushed red and no longer otherworldly, there was a trace of anger on her exceptional countenance. Chu Feng told her in all seriousness that it was more important to comprehend the wondrous technique. He also pulled her earlobe, indicating for her to concentrate. In the end, Ying Zhixian was embarrassed and angry, but she didn't want that treasured tree to disappear. She didn't use the five-color divine light to blast him, but instead directly bit him. Ouch, it hurts. Don't be distracted while comprehending the wonderful technique, shouted Chu Feng. Then, seeing that she didn't loosen her mouth, he firmly bit back. The next moment, both of them widened their eyes because Ying Zhixian had just loosened her mouth when Chu Feng bit back, and their lips were blocked together. Chu Feng didn't loosen his mouth and immediately used his divine spirit to transmit his voice. He said very solemnly, "Don't get excited. Don't struggle. Do you feel it? This seven-colored treasure tree is becoming more and more solid and vivid. Its energy has risen sharply to the peak. Quickly comprehend the symbols on it. I think we've succeeded." Ying Zhixian really wanted to blast him away, but she was shocked to discover that the seven-colored treasured tree was indeed astonishingly resplendent. Moreover, it had grown a lot taller, as if it was a weapon. It was as tall as half a person. Then, she froze there and stared at those symbols. At the same time, she felt her lips itch and felt peculiar. Five-color divine light flickered in her eyes as she stared fiercely at Chu Feng. She warned him that if he dared to play any tricks, she would directly bombard him. At the same time, young noble Pu Lin arrived several hundred kilometers away. He found some clues and felt that he had discovered traces of Chu Feng and the others. Chapter 801. Chu Feng and Ying Zhixian maintained their original posture and didn't move as they looked at the brightly colored and gorgeous little tree in the soul light. It was as tall as half a person, and 7 kinds of symbols hung on its 7 branches. It was extremely profound and complex. Every symbol was a pattern. It was the derivation of order, the extension of the laws. It was precisely because of this that it could possess such terrifying might. As long as this tree was activated, with a light sweep, no matter how talented one was, they would be sucked into the 7-colored light screen or directly turned into ashes. The so-called wonderful 7 treasures technique had 2 kinds of wonderful uses. One of them was similar to the 5-color divine light, which could wipe off all living things. Of course, it was a step further and was even more powerful. The 5-color divine light would sometimes be slightly weak against strange substances that were beyond the 5 elements, but the wonderful 7 treasures technique would not. It could see all things in the world as if they were dust and could sweep them away. Another function of the wonderful 7 treasures technique was its offensive power, which was very terrifying. In a battle of the same rank, if one really used it ruthlessly, it could directly shock the opponent into powder. At this moment, Chu Feng and Ying Zhixian were both infatuated as they immersed themselves within. They studied and comprehended those 7 gorgeous branches and symbols, and their comprehension became deeper and deeper. Vaguely, the chanting of scriptures sounded, spreading from the precious tree that was half a person tall. Many scripture symbols jumped out, landing on their bodies. This was a further step of enlightenment. They were comprehending something on a deeper level of the 7 wonderful techniques. However, their posture was too ambiguous. They were hugging each other, and what made people blush the most was that their lips had touched, and they hadn't separated yet. The main reason was that he was afraid that if he changed his posture, the strange tree would disappear, and he would miss out on a great opportunity. The two of them weren't distracted right now. The so-called charming and gentle, the so-called chaotic hearts, these didn't exist. They were suppressed by their tenacious wills, their Tao hearts firm. At such a crucial moment, they wouldn't be negligent and didn't dare to skip out. They all concentrated on comprehending the wonderful technique. In the end, they recovered and awoke from the state of Tao comprehension. Then, they looked at each other. This kind of posture was too awkward. Of course, Ing Zhixian was the only one who was embarrassed. How thick was Chu Feng's skin? It was quite natural. After that, Ing Zhixian felt that something was amiss. Did souls also have saliva? It was a terrible feeling. You bite people. Chu Feng used soul light to transmit his voice. You let go. When Ing Zhixian said these two words, she was rather embarrassed and annoyed. This was the first time she had experienced this kind of situation in her life, and she was really entangled with the person in front of her. Are we cultivating as a pair as mentioned in the legends of Taoism? I reckon that only Tao companions can fuse their soul light together. Chu Feng, however, remained calm and collected as he dawdled. In particular, he was quite reckless. Will you take responsibility for me? When she heard these words, Ing Zhixian wanted to chop him up no matter how good her temper was. Her black-bellied temperament appeared in a flash as she calmly exerted force and bit down. Then, tragedy befell Chu Feng. His lips were in excruciating pain and his soul blood flowed out. He let out a loud howl, and both of them used their wonderful techniques at the same time. In a split second, they combined into the true, wonderful seven treasures technique. With a swoosh, a streak of brightly colored light swept out. In a split second, space was torn apart, and a large pitch-black hole appeared. As for the two domains on the ground, they were directly disintegrated and blasted open. At the same time, the brightly colored light evaporated a large lake in front of them. The water disappeared because it was a boundless expanse of blue waves. Apart from that, an island also turned into fine powder and disappeared without a trace. I was wrong. I'm the one taking responsibility for you. Chu Feng shouted because his chin had been bitten and the other party still hadn't let go. Energy was violently turbulent in the vicinity. The repercussions of the wonderful seven treasures technique directly scattered all the domains that Chu Feng had set up here and forcefully broke them open. This was the terrifying part of the supreme, wonderful technique. When faced with an obstacle, it would forcefully break through it. The ancient people who had once successfully cultivated the wonderful seven treasures technique definitely had a deep understanding of what it meant to be invincible. It didn't matter if a myriad of techniques were unleashed at the same time, or if a great army was encircling and suppressing them. A streak of colorful light swept out and blasted through all obstructions. Otherwise, how could it shake the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries? At this moment, Ouyang Feng escaped from the small black room. After he saw the two of them, he shouted on the spot, I was still saying earlier that Chu Feng's eyes were emitting green light. I didn't expect that one of them was willing to fight and the other was willing to suffer. They've even hugged each other. You guys are really bold to do this in front of me. Are you trying to dirty my eyes? What a scandal. Are you trying to provoke this divine king into being single? You're going too far. In a split second, Ing Xiaoxiao also broke free. The gorgeous rainbow light also shattered the domains that sealed her. Oh my, Ing Zhixian, you have indeed been eaten. Oh my God, my dear sister, you're finished. You're dead meat. I'll go back and tell our mother that you're extremely daring to bite someone's chin and want to lead me astray. The silver-haired little Lolita's small mouth was like fried beans as she rattled off a bunch of nonsense. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Therefore, after Chu Feng and Ing Xiaoxiao finished using the wonderful seven treasures technique, they shattered the domains, causing Ouyang Feng and Ing Xiaoxiao to discover them immediately after they broke free. Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian didn't have time to separate and were caught red-handed. With a swoosh, Ing Zhixian flew out and used the five-color divine light to sweep her younger sister over. After that, she taught her a lesson. Brother-in-law, save me. Hurry up and save me. If you don't save me, I'll tell my mother that she's against you two becoming Tao companions. After that, she was even more miserable. She was taught a lesson by Ing Zhixian until she wailed and howled. After a very long time, they finally quieted down. Ing Xiaoxiao puffed her cheeks and pouted. She could even tie a donkey to the ground. After this silence, Chu Feng approached Ying Zhexian with a smile on his face. He wanted to worm his way into Ying Zhexian's good graces and dissolve the awkwardness from before. I'm warning you, don't say anything. Ying Zhexian regained her state of being as faintly discernible as a fairy. She was above the common people, but the main thing was that she really wasn't comfortable with that kind of ambiguity, so she immediately avoided it. What's going on? The silver-haired little lowly didn't remember her lesson. Her big eyes rolled around as she asked Chu Feng in a low voice. Chu Feng replied snappily, "Your sister said that she won't take responsibility for me." Ouyang Feng's beak was wide open as he squinted his eyes in a daze. Ying Xiao was also petrified as she felt the heavenly thunder rolling. What exactly was going on? Her sister was the one who took the initiative. Did she abandon Chu Feng after seducing him? Sister, you're really free and easy. I really admire you. I want to learn from you in the future. After that, the silver-haired little lowly was beaten up by her sister amidst the clanking sounds. She was badly battered and her face was swollen. After that, Ying Zhexian immediately started to chase after Chu Feng. At this moment, Pu Lin wasn't far from where they were. They were less than 150 kilometers apart. He brought along more than 10 people, including 5 divine archers. They sneered as they waited to hunt. The other 30 people dispersed and searched in other directions. Pu Lin could sense that they were close to their target and they weren't very far away. When we meet them a while, use spirit arrows with yang qi to shoot them. Don't be lenient, Pu Lin fiercely ordered. When the morning glow was brilliant and the sun rose, a loud beast roar came from the depths of the mountain forest. It made Chu Feng and the others quiet all of a sudden. That was a ferocious beast with an unimaginable rank. A conservative estimate was that it should be above the quasi-saint realm. Fortunately, they were far enough away. They sized up this mountainous region. There was actually primal chaos chi on the mountain peak in the distance. The strange beasts nearby were all very strong and emitted dense blood chi. If it was a few days ago, they would definitely have fled immediately. They simply couldn't withstand this kind of blood chi once it surged, and their Yin spirits would explode. Let's go. We'll go back along the original path and eliminate that bastard Pu Lin, said Ouyang Feng. He rubbed his palms together and couldn't wait a moment longer. He really wished he could get rid of that young noble immediately. They were too miserable when they were fleeing for their lives a few days ago. There were a few times when they were almost shot by an arrow. Their souls were seriously threatened by those divine archers of the Golden Body realm many times, and their soul bodies were even set on fire. Ying Xiao also shouted, "That's right. We'll take revenge right now. I'll cripple everyone who bullies me. Ying Xiao, apart from my big evil sister." Ying Zhexian rolled her eyes at her younger sister and said, "Won't you be a target for others if you go over so brazenly?" Now, her black-bellied nature had returned a little. Ying Zhexian suggested that they hunt in the vicinity and find a few suitable corporeal bodies. In any case, they had become yang souls now and should be able to reside in suitable bodies. It was more suitable for them to change their faces and look for Pu Lin. Chu Feng felt that it was reasonable, and they moved together. This mountain forest was very large, and there were all kinds of vicious birds and fierce beasts. In the end, they saw a few swans beside an extremely large lake, and they were all a powerful species. Most of these swans were at the transformation realm, and some of the stronger ones were close to the golden body realm. Every single one of them was very ferocious. There were many human bones and crocodile bones nearby, which were all left after they ate the flesh and blood. In the end, the cries of swans rang out, and a fierce battle broke out in this place. A moment later, 3 white swans and 1 black swan soared into the sky and left this place. The body that Ouyang Feng occupied was undoubtedly that black swan because he felt that it resembled his original body more, and he was used to looking at it. Chu Feng, Ying Zhexian, and Ying Xiao turned into white swans. They really weren't used to it at first, but after thinking about it, it didn't matter since they were only borrowing it and weren't going to use it for a long time. Let's go and get rid of Pu Lin, They followed the original path and flapped their wings a little. They were really as swift as the wind and lightning. They were too fast, and a few hundred kilometers were merely a matter of a blink of an eye. Stop! Chu Feng transmitted his voice because he discovered a few nights when he looked down from a high altitude after flying out of the mountain forest and entering the wasteland. Enemies are really bound to meet on a narrow road. Isn't this that grandson Pu Lin? Let's go and harvest his head. No, we'll beat him up until even his mother can't recognize him first. They discovered Pu Lin leading more than 10 knights from the wasteland and advancing toward the direction of the mountain forest. A few ghostly slaves, damned Een spirits. I'm finally going to find you guys. Wait for your deaths. I'll shoot you guys one by one a while. Pu Lin was cursing. He had been living in the open for the past few days, and his entire person was haggard. Even though he had a jar of divine beast blood on him, he never had the chance to consume it because he was chasing after Chu Feng and the others. Even though the people following him were all his trusted aides, he didn't dare to reveal his secret in front of so many people. This grandson still wants to get rid of us? Go down and exterminate him. Ouyang Feng mumbled. Let's wait for them in front. Chu Feng said. After all, this was the first time he was going to attack and fight fiercely with a divine archer. He didn't dive down right away for fear of becoming a live target. However, he reckoned that it wouldn't be a problem even if he dove down right away. Everything was for the sake of safety. All right, we'll finish the battle within 3 breaths later. Ouyang Feng nodded. At this moment, Pu Lin raised his head just in time to see them. He said somewhat sinisterly, a black swan? Kill it for me. Mother Aster's I'll think of that ghostly slave with a black tortoise shell on his back when I see this kind of black swan. It's just as loathsome. Shoot it to death. Ouyang Feng really wanted to curse his 8 generations of ancestors. How could he be discriminated against like this? After that, he saw that the divine archers on the ground were really going to draw their bows and knock their arrows. He was immediately rather delighted. He folded his wings and didn't fly. Instead, he somersaulted as though he was diving and smashed down. Chapter 802. Ouyang Feng somersaulted and fell down. Its wings were closed, and like a fancy dive, it spun and tossed in midair before smashing downwards. What a silly bird. Pu Lin narrowed his eyes and evaluated. However, he was very vigilant. He raised his hand and took out his bow, preparing to kill this black swan himself. In midair, Ouyang Feng's nose was about to become crooked. He really wanted to curse out loud. Who are you talking about, grandson? Little Marquis. This is what they call a bird that is easily frightened by the twang of a bowstring. A divine archer at the side smiled and explained to Pu Lin, saying, Young Duke, please take a look. There's a wound on its body that's still dripping with blood. It was obviously pierced by an arrow or some other sharp object. Now that it's being aimed at by a bow and arrow, it's clearly panicking. Ouyang Feng really wanted to say, what F*** king frightened bird? That was pierced by his soul light when he seized this body, all right? Pu Lin immediately burst into laughter and said, so there really are frightened birds in this world. Such a silly black swan is so stupid that it's adorable. Forget it, I won't shoot it. Let's rest and reorganize again. Pluck its feathers, wash it, and roast it. We'll eat something. Ouyang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He closed his eyes because he wasn't far away. He was afraid that the killing intent in his eyes would startle them, so he was forcefully restraining himself. However, his body was still trembling from anger. A knight laughed and said, Young Duke, please take a look. How frightened is this frightened bird's heart? Its body is weak and trembling in midair. Yes, generally speaking, this kind of bird's meat is more delicious because it's extremely nervous. Its muscles are taut, so it's very chewy when roasted. Ouyang Feng trembled even more violently. That face of his was so black that it was about to drip water. The feathers on his entire body stood on end. He couldn't king endure it. Another knight laughed and said, Young Duke, look. This is the so-called hair standing on end. This black swan is so frightened that it can't care about anything else. Its wings are standing on end. Yes, I reckon that it might incontinence in a while and directly faint from fright. The silly bird is here, Pu Lin said with a smile. Ouyang Feng somersaulted and landed in front of him. His liver was in pain from his anger, so he instantly erupted. He suddenly spread his wings and used them as a pair of arms. He even wanted to clench them and use them as fists. However, when he tried, he could only use them as a palm. Boom! He rotated his wings and used them as a big palm, directly slapping over. He had a belly full of anger, and now he didn't hold back at all, using the divine beast martial arts. This was the legendary rock spreading wings technique. Once an adult, Great Pung spread its wings. It could soar 90,000 miles into the sky. The heavens collapsed and the earth split apart, and even space itself will be sliced apart by its golden wings. Its might was world-shocking. At such a close distance, he suddenly launched an attack as fast as a bolt of black lightning. It had to be said that Pu Lin's innate talent was outstanding. His reaction was quick, and he left behind an afterimage where he stood as he retreated explosively. Bang! One of the knights was struck by Ouyang Feng's wings, and a glaring radiance like that of a thunderbolt erupted. At the same time, the sound of bones breaking and tendons snapping could be heard. That knight flew out horizontally and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. It seemed like he couldn't hold on any longer. The main reason was that Ouyang Feng wasn't just using his physical strength. He was also urging his soul light to penetrate his body and directly shatter his opponent's soul. In the end, the man disintegrated the moment he hit the ground. Boom! Ouyang Feng didn't stop after his first attack succeeded. His body spun in midair, and he blasted toward another knight who had previously made fun of him. His soul light flew out through his wings. This wasn't a simple attack. This was a divine beast-level spiritual martial art that Xiao told him about. In addition, his own blood and soul also had this aspect of inheritance. "Kill him for me," Pu Lin shouted. A startling turn of events made his expression as gloomy as water. He ordered everyone to attack and immediately strangle this black swan. Chi! That knight was very impressive, but he simply couldn't block the soul light attack of the famous golden-winged Great Pung race when he encountered a genuine divine technique. That was because it was too sudden. It was too late for him to dodge at such a close distance, and a beam of soul light blasted through his forehead and penetrated his skull. He let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground with his back facing the sky. He died on the spot. Chi! At this moment, the sound of a bowstring rang out. A divine archer at the side decisively drew his bow and aimed at Ouyang Fei. He released an azure arrow, and a ball of glaring blue light burned as it blasted towards Ouyang Feng. This didn't seem like an arrow. It was more like a blue volcano that was heavily injured. With a rumble, blue light flared up. F*CK me. You still think I'm a pushover? I've upgraded to your ancestor. Ouyang Feng hooted. He dodged to the side with a whoosh and didn't take it head on. He was very excited and stirred up. This time, this spirit arrow that was filled with yang qi didn't make him feel like his soul was about to collapse. As long as he avoided it, he wouldn't be affected. When he faced this arrow a few days ago, he was set ablaze even though it brushed past him slightly. He was rather miserable. Chi! Ouyang Feng flapped his wings again, and both of his wings vibrated at the same time. Two beams of dazzling and bewitching soul light flew out diagonally and blasted towards that divine archer. After all, he was a divine archer at the Golden Body Realm and a powerhouse among tens of thousands of elite soldiers. His strength was extraordinary, and he avoided the soul light in a split second. Following that, he drew his bow in succession and fired several arrows at the same time. At this moment, the others finally reacted and made their move. This black swan got rid of two of their quasi-golden body realm knights right under their noses. This made the group of people furious, and there was no lack of formidable figures at the golden body realm among them. They roared and charged at Ouyang Feng. When they waved their fists, energy surged and caused this wasteland to explode. "Come at me." Your grandfather, the divine king Ouyang, likes to slaughter self-righteous golden bodies like you." Ouyang Feng shouted. In reality, his eyes were drifting towards the sky to see where Chu Feng and the others were. He felt a little guilty. "It's you, Jun Tuo-san?" At this moment, Pu Lin finally sensed a familiar aura. Combined with Ouyang Feng's words, he immediately exploded. His eyes were spitting fire, and his face was full of black lines. His killing intent soared all of a sudden. That was because he recognized it. This was that strange bird with a black tortoise shell on its back. It actually had a physical body now. Ouyang Feng also exploded in a split second. He was so angry that he yelled, "Bullsh asterisk T young noble. Grandson, get over here. What the F asterisk CK is this Jun Ta? You're his grandson. I'll beat you to death." Bang! He avoided a cultivator at the Golden Body realm and swooped towards the young, noble Pu Lin. He spread his wings, which was an incomplete martial art of the Phoenix race. Shocking flames gushed out as he blasted forward. "Idiot! Lowly ghost slaves! I've finally found all of you. Don't even think of leaving. Shoot them all to death." Pu Lin bellowed angrily. He already knew that these people had already consumed the sacred medicine. Otherwise, how could they dare to occupy a physical body that was surging with blood and chi? This was the embodiment of completely cleansing and drawing in yin chi. Pu Lin's heart was dripping blood, and everything in front of him went dark. He had been pursuing for such a long time, but in the end, he was still a step too late. These people's efficiency was really too high. If it was an ordinary yin spirit, it was simply impossible to complete this task without at least half a month's time. "I'm going to dismember all of you into 1,000 pieces," Pu Lin roared. He opened his mouth and spat out a small golden flag. Following that, it unfurled in the wind and rapidly enlarged. It fluttered and covered the sky. "Kill!" Ouyang Feng was horrified because the might of this golden flag was too shocking. It made his physical body tense up, and all his feathers involuntarily fluffed up and stood erect. A chill ran down his spine. Rumble! Sure enough, after this golden flag landed in Pu Lin's hands, it displayed a frightening might. It was even more powerful than the killing moves of those Golden Body realm experts. As the large flag was waved, a 1,000-meter-tall, large mountain in front of them exploded in an instant from the impact of the golden mist that rushed out from the flag and disappeared from its original position. It was just a single strike, and the mountain turned into ashes. If Ouyang Feng had dodged slightly slower, he would have definitely been killed. The weapon on this dog fart young noble is really impressive. Quickly attack! Ouyang Feng shouted as he called out to Chu Feng, Ing Jiaxian, and the others. The might that this large flag unleashed wasn't necessarily inferior to a person at the perfect Golden Body realm. It could definitely kill a group of experts. It was a terrifying secret treasure. Chu Feng and Ing Jiaxian swooped down, but a few divine archers were aiming at them. Arrows flew out one after another, making the sky incomparably gorgeous. The violent energy impact was like dozens of volcanoes erupting, and even the sky was trembling. This was what divine archers were. Every arrow was frighteningly terrifying. Chi, 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 scarlet, blue, silver, purple, and gold arrows interweaved and sealed off the heaven and earth. This kind of arrow was horrifying because every type was enough to kill a Golden Body realm expert. Now, the 5 great divine archers launched an attack together. In an instant, more than 30 arrows flew into the firmament. The scene was terrifying, and the energy surged enough to overturn dozens of large mountains. The sky was trembling and rumbling. Thunder exploded one after another, and energy rays surged violently as if they were going to overturn this part of the world. The most terrifying thing was that these arrows were attached with a wisp of the divine archer's soul light. They could chase after the enemy and wouldn't stop until they killed them. As a result, to people at the Golden Body realm, being covered by this kind of arrow net was a fatal blow. Chu Feng and Ing Jiaxian looked at each other and didn't hesitate at all. During the process of swooping down, the two of them stuck together and flew side by side as they used the wonderful 7 treasures technique together. Bang! In a split second, the world was filled with brightly colored light that drowned the space in front of the two of them. All the arrows that were flying over were covered. Without a sound, those spirit arrows were fixed in place before they broke inch by inch. Then, with a bang, more than 30 arrows turned into fine powder. Following that, the brightly colored light flew down and swept 3 divine archers on the spot, causing them to immediately turn into a bloody mist. Their bodies and souls were destroyed on the spot. The other 2 divine archers dodged quickly, but the 4 people beside them couldn't. They were melted by the colorful light at once and disappeared without a trace. Once this kind of might was displayed, the remaining people below were so shocked that they emitted a chill. Ouyang Feng took advantage of this opportunity to avoid Pu Lin and attack the others, getting rid of 2 knights who had lost their minds. Pu Lin was alarmed and furious at the same time. He came in pursuit of these people, but in the end, he suffered disastrous losses as soon as they met face to face. 3 out of the 5 divine archers were eliminated, and 8 knights perished one after another. More than half of the people he brought with him were gone. "Go, slaves, I'm going to kill you." Pu Lin's expression was gloomy and his gaze was cold. He crazily urged the golden flag in his hand to kill Ouyang Feng, but he was also wary of Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian who were swooping down from midair. Boom, boom, boom. The large flag swayed several times, and Ouyang Feng let out a strange cry. He was truly shocked. When the surface of the flag fluttered, it hid the sky and covered the earth. It was very difficult to evade. In a short while, it covered the mountaintop in front of him, and only a pile of ashes was left. In the end, Ouyang Feng exploded and his flesh fell apart. To be precise, his corporeal body disintegrated. The process of the battle was too intense, and this corporeal body wasn't suitable for his soul. His soul escaped, and he used his corporeal body to block the attack from behind. Pu Lin said coldly, "In spirit, die for me, you ghost slaves." This large flag was refined by his father, and its might was comparable to an all-out attack from a late-stage golden body evolver. If it advanced a step further, it would touch the realm of quasi-saints. He stared fiercely at Ouyang Feng and chased after him. At the same time, he swept his eyes over Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian who were in midair. Kill! Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian arrived in a flash. They broke out in a cold sweat when they saw Ouyang Feng's corporeal body being destroyed in a split second. They didn't expect that this young noble Pu Lin would have such a terrifying weapon on him. They realized that they couldn't look down on anyone. "Go, slaves, die for me," Pu Lin reprimanded. He abandoned Ouyang Feng and directly soared into the sky to attack Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian. With this large golden flag in hand and some life-saving methods, he was confident that he could kill everyone within the golden body realm as long as a special old monster didn't appear. Whoosh! The large golden flag fluttered and stirred up winds and clouds in a split second. The clouds and mist covered the sky and formed a corrosive energy that wanted to swallow Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian. "Let go of me!" shouted Chu Feng. He and Ing Zhexian's white wings fused together and flew together. They crossed the sky and activated the wonderful technique once more. This time, Chu Feng had his eyes on this large golden flag and was prepared to take it away. Unfortunately, they didn't have a tacit understanding this time. He used the technique of sweeping down all living things in order to seize the large flag, while Ing Zhexian used an offensive technique in order to turn the other party into flying ash. This led to the failure of the wonderful technique. When that large flag swept over, it was truly shocking and rolling thunder. Yellow mist surged, and the corrosive energy was astonishing. It almost swallowed the two of them. Bang! As they retreated at an extremely fast speed, they each shot out their yin-yang light and 5-color divine light. That flag swept over, and they narrowly avoided it, but they were still affected. They spat out large mouthfuls of blood and were sent flying. The 2 white swans were stained with blood and almost turned into red swans. Their blood-stained feathers withered, and even their souls were trembling. Fortunately, they each urged their yin-yang qi and five-colored soul light to protect themselves at the crucial moment. Otherwise, they might have exploded. Below them, a very majestic mountain was smashed into pieces by the large golden flag. Rubble flew into the sky, and the scene was rather terrifying. What are you thinking at the crucial moment? Ying looked at Chu Feng. Isn't it because I've taken a fancy to this weapon of his? I'll seize the treasure first, and then kill him, said Chu Feng. Whoosh! The two of them joined hands again. Their blood-stained wings fused together, and their soul light resonated. After that, they displayed a world-shocking, wonderful technique. A brightly colored small tree appeared in their soul light. Then, with a swoosh, seven-colored divine light flew out and covered that large golden flag in an instant. Huh, come back here, Pu Lin shouted. He was truly shocked because the large flag in his hand didn't listen to his orders. It was directly guided out and flew away. Chu Feng laughed heartily and took it. Lowly otherworldly Yin spirit, you dare to seize my secret treasure? Explode. Pu Lin bellowed with an incomparably gloomy and cold expression. A wisp of an imprint on a large flag in Chu Feng's hand instantly awakened and emitted a wisp of terrifying aura. It was obviously left behind by a terrifying expert. Swoosh! In a split second, Chu Feng and Ying Zhexian's hair stood on end. This was definitely an imprint left behind by an expert they couldn't afford to offend. Fortunately, it wasn't his true body, nor was a remnant soul. It was just an imprint. Boom! They were very decisive and attacked together. They urged the wonderful seven treasures technique again. After the brightly colored light swept past, they stripped off that wisp of imprint in a split second and threw it into the distance. They could see the void where the imprint was exploding, and a terrifying black crack appeared. It sunk the wasteland that it covered and caused smoke and dust to surge into the sky within a radius of several dozen kilometers. They sucked in a breath of cold air. If their reactions were slightly slower by a step, then they would be in danger. Pu Lin and the knight behind him were shocked. That was the imprint of Pu Lin's father, Ling Weiho, and it was actually stripped off. How shocking were those two's wonderful techniques. Pu Lin and the others didn't dare to believe that they could separate the imprint from the secret treasure. Pu Lin, who did you say was the ghost slave? Today, I'll make you the ghost slave, shouted Chu Feng. After that, he and Ying Zhexian attacked once more. A streak of seven-colored brilliance violently shot down. Pu Lin simply couldn't evade it. With a bang, his entire body exploded and turned into a mass of bloody mist. He screamed miserably as the rain of soul light reassembled. He had a divine talisman that was bestowed by his father to preserve his life. Chapter 803. Young Noble. Nearby, the two divine archers and the horsemen shouted together. Pu Lin was killed in front of them. If he didn't have the death substitution divine talisman, he would definitely be dead. They rushed forward together to save Pu Lin. That attack just now was too shocking. Pu Lin's entire body turned into a bloody mist, and even his armor exploded. It was equivalent to being killed once. The bloody mist dispersed, and a sparkling and translucent divine talisman that was full of cracks was gathering Pu Lin's soul light with it as the center. Give me the spatial bracelet, Pu Lin growled. He exploded just now, but his right hand was preserved. Chu Feng controlled the multicolored light to deliberately miss it, leaving him with a hand and a dark golden bracelet. That was because he had seen Pu Lin fill his own pockets and steal divine beast blood with his own eyes. He didn't know if he used it or not. Besides, as a young noble, he definitely had some good stuff on him that was worth leaving behind a secret spatial treasure. However, when those people rushed over, the dark golden spatial bracelet was swept by Ying Zhexian's five-color divine light and instantly taken away. A jar of divine beast blood. Ying Zhexian opened it on the spot and revealed a strange expression. Pu Lin growled. He felt too uncomfortable and couldn't accept this result. He came to kill a few ghostly slaves. In his eyes, what were these Een spirits? Their soul light would collapse if they were attacked by the horsemen he led. But what was the result? Not only did he not obtain the sacred medicine and divine beast blood that he wanted, but he also threw himself in. Even the divine beast blood that he brought with him was snatched away instead. This almost drove him crazy. Kill them for me. Pu Lin's soul light converged and revolved around the sparkling and translucent divine talisman as his figure appeared. At this moment, he was hysterical and in a state of madness as he shouted loudly, "Kill them for me. Kill them all." Several days ago, the Een spirits that were still being chased by him turned around and destroyed his corporeal body, suppressing a young noble like him. How could he endure this? At this moment, Pu Lin's state of mind was unbalanced. The other party had already destroyed his corporeal body, so he naturally understood in his heart that the situation was already over. If the 10,000 horsemen he commanded were here, it would still be fine. But what was left of him now? How could 2 divine archers and 4 knights stop Chu Feng and Ing Zhixian? Kill them for me. His eyes were red, like a gambler. He roared there. Protect the young noble, retreat. A knight said in a low voice. They still had divine movement talismans on them, allowing them to travel hundreds of li boom. Unfortunately, Chu Feng didn't give them the chance. He joined hands with Ing Zhixian and midair and swept out a rainbow-colored beam of light once again. It enveloped the 2 divine archers below who were knocking their arrows and enveloped the 4 horsemen. Puff! They turned into a sphere of bloody light, not even shattering, their bodies and spirits extinguished. It's too savage. These are all prey. Using the mutant technique to absorb their divinity granules can help them evolve, cried Ouyang Feng. I'm sorry, Chu Feng said, but don't they still have a lot of cavalry? Let's go back and find them. At this moment, Pu Lin's soul light had already reassembled. His eyes were filled with resentment. This was the biggest loss he had suffered in his life. He could still accept it if he was killed by his enemies on the moon goddess side. But he really couldn't accept it when he was counter-killed by a few Een spirits and ghosts that he had once looked down on and simply didn't put in his eyes. He was once aloof and remote as he led 10,000 horsemen to kill these foreign Een spirits and make them flee in disorder. Not a single one dared to contend against him, but now he had fallen to this step. His mentality was unbalanced. Oh, this is authentic, pure, divine beast blood. Young noble Pu Lin, thanks a lot. After Chu Feng saw that J-Jar and midair, he looked down at Pu Lin, who was on the ground, with a smile. Pu Lin's eyes were spitting fire as he spat out a mouthful of soul blood right away. He was truly angered. This kind of matter was enough to hurt him for a lifetime, but the prerequisite was that he could survive. Ouyang Feng slowly paced around with a black VIP on his back and said, Young noble Pu Lin, who is eager for justice and has forged good karma. Thank you, brother Pu Lin. You came all the way here to deliver divine beast blood to us, and at the same time, you took the initiative to come here and let us beat you up. Thank you so much. When he heard these words and saw Ouyang Feng elegantly striding like a swan, Pu Lin coughed out another mouthful of soul blood with a puff. He was really about to go crazy. These words were too ear-piercing. They really poked at his heart and lungs, making him feel so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. He carefully thought about how arrogant he was a few days ago and didn't even bother to open his eyes to look at Jun Tuo's son. In the end, he was reduced to a prisoner. Een spirit, don't be complacent. We'll break through the boundary wall of the foreign realm you're in the end. The martial god has studied it for many years. We'll kill our way over. Even if your father is really an outstanding big shot, Jun Tuo, he's not enough in front of the martial god's fierce generals. He'll be beaten into dregs. Pu Lin said with a gloomy face. This time, if I can't beat you to death, I'll first blast you into dregs. Ouyang Feng was anxious. He couldn't be more angry as he bombarded wildly. He displayed his divine beast martial arts, and his soul light flickered. Bang, bang, Bang! Pu Lin flew out in succession. He already didn't retaliate because it was meaningless. Chu Feng and Ying Zhixian were looking down from above. Once that kind of seven-colored radiance fell, his death substitution talisman would definitely collapse again and be wasted for nothing. Young noble, cooperate with us. We'll give you a dignified death, said Chu Feng. You want to kill me? Pu Lin's expression changed, and his body couldn't help but tremble. After that, he said in a loud voice, My father is Marquis Ling Wei-ho. You might not know his status and power. He's one of the generals under the martial god. If you kill me, there won't be a place for you in the entire desolate region. It'll be useless no matter where you escape to. Isn't there still the moon goddess? Let's go to her territory, said Ying Zhixian calmly. It was only one sentence, but it immediately made Pu Lin feel stifled. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. At this moment, Ying Xiaoxiao also flew over from the horizon. She was incomparably excited as she shouted, We've finally caught this pig-headed young noble. Not long ago, he chased after us so miserably. Let's beat him into a pig's head first. Pu Lin glared. Now, even a little Lolita dared to say such things to him. Even though she was outrageously beautiful, he still couldn't bear it. Brother-in-law, he threatened me. There's killing intent in his eyes. Ying Xiaoxiao complained. All right, brother-in-law will help you vent your anger. Chu Feng smiled and nodded. With a bang, he slapped Pu Lin's face. He hit Pu Lin until he couldn't restrain his anger and was about to retaliate. Behave yourself. Ouyang Feng gracefully approached and prepared to make a move again to beat Pu Lin up. In the sky, Ying Zhixian glared at Chu Feng. There was dissatisfaction, humiliation, and a warning on her peerless face. At the same time, she secretly warned Ying Xiaoxiao. Otherwise, if this went on, this little girl would call him brother-in-law again and again. Then, she really wouldn't be able to say it smoothly. What's the matter? Aren't you guys already cultivating as a pair? The silver-haired little Lolita mumbled. Then, she said with an air of being proud of her age and experience, Are youngsters nowadays so open? They all like to indulge themselves and don't want everlasting results. I really can't understand you youngsters. Once these words came out, Ying Zhixian didn't want to hit Pu Lin anymore. She really wanted to hit her younger sister. Young noble, I've offended you a moment ago. Come, let's have a good talk. Actually, it's not that I can't let you live. Chu Feng opened his mouth and gave him hope. Say, what do you want? Pu Lin was rather straightforward. I want to learn an even higher level mutant technique from you. Please advise me. Chu Feng smiled. He wanted to snatch the mutant technique, yet he said it so elegantly. Pu Lin really wanted to smash a fist into his face. He really hated this ghost slave to the core. I don't. Not to mention me, even my father, Ling Wei-ho, is unable to obtain a complete high-grade mutant technique. Pu Lin shook his head. Pu Lin only grasped a mid-grade mutant technique. In the army, some divine archers and comparatively stronger knights grasped it, so it wasn't considered a top secret. Earlier on, Chu Feng had already obtained it from him. That's truly regrettable. You don't have anything worth exchanging. Chu Feng sighed. All right, then hand this grandson over to me. Earlier on, when this divine king was fleeing for thousands of miles, my body was burned by arrows many times, yet this grandson was still laughing behind me and calling me a ghost slave. He's simply infuriating Uncle Divine, King Ouyang, to death. I'll hit him. As he spoke, Ouyang Feng immediately gave him a swan cry and pressed a claw on his face. Both of them were in soul form now, so the damage was very effective. Bang! Pu Lin flew out and flew into a great rage. He couldn't bear it anymore. He felt that even if he continued to cooperate, the other party wouldn't let him off. Since that was the case, then he would go all out. There was no need to be submissive. Boom! He urged his soul light and attacked Ouyang Feng. Chi! In the end, he was blasted away by Ouyang Feng's rock-spreading wings technique, and the divine sun flew out. Now, Ouyang Feng was a divine beast that possessed a sun soul. Compared to before, his advancement was extremely swift and violent. No matter which world, divine beasts were terrifying. In the same realm, few could match them. Search his soul and understand the origin and secrets of the mutant technique. See if there's anything we need to pay attention to. Chu Feng indicated to Ing Zhaxian that she needed to join forces with him to absolutely suppress Pu Lin. She didn't let him self-destruct or resist as she cooperated with the soul search. Chi. The two of them flew together and their soul light blended together. Once again, they unleashed the wonderful Seven Treasures technique, enveloping Pu Lin and suppressing him there so that he couldn't move at all. Grandson, let's see if you can be arrogant again. Ouyang Feng rushed over and gave him a kick before immediately searching his soul. After a short moment, his expression became unsightly. In the end, the divine talisman in Pu Lin's soul light flickered and was actually about to explode. Following that, an imposing voice rang out. Who dares to search my divine soul? The imprint that Ling Weiho left on the divine talisman was revived and emitted a terrifying fluctuation. With a chi, a phantom rushed out and suspended in midair. It lacked energy, but possessed a shocking wisp of nomological fluctuation. Father? Kill them. Pu Lin was shocked. Then he was incomparably excited and delighted. There's a wisp of soul light in the imprint that his father left in his body. Retreat, shouted Chu Feng. In reality, Ouyang Feng had long since fled. Once he saw that the situation wasn't right, he slipped away quickly. The silver-haired little Lolita was also incomparably quick-witted. With a swoosh, she disappeared without a trace. This phantom stared at Chu Feng and Ing Zhaxian as it felt that these two were the real threats. Clang! A bell rang as Chu Feng activated the soul bell. It suspended above his and Ing Zhaxian's soul light. After that, they joined forces and unleashed the wonderful Seven Treasures technique again with a boom. However, this time it was shot out through the soul. That seven-colored brilliance was supported by the soul bell and erupted with even more astonishing energy. Boom! That phantom was startled. After all, it was a wisp of soul light and not a true soul. It was impossible for its adaptability and reaction to be like a real person's. Boom! This wisp of soul light directly collided head-on. A shocking might erupted between the two. Chu Feng and Ing Zhaxian were sent flying as they coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. Even the soul bell flew diagonally as it rang incessantly. However, that phantom exploded with a pop in the end. Father, Pu Lin was shocked. One had to know that his father's soul light definitely had the might of a quasi-saint, but it was actually obliterated in the end. How astonishing were those two's wonderful techniques. One had to know that what realm were they in? How old were they? This kind of result was enough to shock the world. Fortunately, it's just a wisp of soul light. It's hard to sustain it. Otherwise, we'd definitely die, sighed Chu Feng. You could be on your way, said Ouyang Feng. Boom! He attacked from the side to kill Pu Lin. Pu Lin wanted to fight with his life on the line, but in the end, Chu Feng and Ing Zhaxian also attacked. They didn't want any unforeseen events to happen again, so they directly suppressed and killed him. That death substitute talisman shattered 4 times in a row. Pu Lin screamed in fright as he transformed into a rain of light here. His body and soul were completely destroyed. At the same time, in a city 50,000 kilometers away, Ling Weiho's heart palpitated. Then he sorted his feet and shouted, "You dare to kill my son? How dare you? I'll kill all of you." Although several days had passed in this world, it was only a moment in the original universe of Chu Feng and the others. At the same time, on Mount Eternal in the EC of Earth, Big Black Yak called his friends and asked who wanted to go to the foreign realm with them. He said they could advance by leaps and bounds, but it was also very dangerous. In the end, no one actually responded. In the words of the old donkey, cultivation was indeed valuable, but life was even more valuable. They wouldn't go even if they were beaten to death. Hee-haw, old black, go. I, Lu Feiyang, will recite scriptures for you every day. Don't worry and boldly go to the foreign realm. Go. Mother of Asterisk recite scriptures for me every day. Are you trying to ferry me from the afterlife? Big Black Yak's face darkened even more. Brother Ox, have a safe journey. I won't send you off. The Manchurian tiger, Zhou Quan, and the others shook their heads. They wouldn't go even if they were beaten to death. Then, Yellow Cattle directly went to Kunlun to see Princess Yao Yao. In the end, Yao Yao followed him to Eternal Island as soon as she heard the news. Only souls can go over. Who's going to go to war with me? We'll illuminate the heavens in the foreign realm and kill our way to a glorious nation. Yao Yao wanted to go. With such a call from her, everyone raised their hands with a whoosh, indicating that they had to follow her. Big Black Yak rolled his eyes and said, "What do you guys mean? I told you guys not to go, but when Princess Yao Yao said she wanted to go, you guys followed her with your buttocks and a face full of cheap smiles. Isn't that too much? If we go with you, I reckon we won't be able to return." Who is Princess Yao Yao? She's number one under the starry skies and is unrivaled in the ancient universe. Naturally, we have to follow her. Let's go to war in the foreign realm. Yao Yao waved her hand. Her style was peerless as she led everyone on the road. Chapter 804. Chu Feng glanced at Ouyang Feng and said, "Why is your face so black? It's almost emitting black qi. Do you know how to speak human?" Ouyang Feng raised a swan neck and looked at him with a black face. It'd be strange if he was fair and tender. Ing Xiao Xiao giggled. At this moment, the entire battlefield was already quiet. Pu Lin and his subordinates were eliminated. Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian's marvelous technique had an astonishing might in their first battle. They killed the so-called divine archers and knights. Ouyang Feng indeed had a black face and an unsightly expression. What exactly happened? Chu Feng asked. Ouyang Feng was in charge of searching Pu Lin's soul just now. Then his face turned black. "It's definitely bad news related to us," said Ing Zhexian. She landed on the ground and abandoned her swan body. She was graceful and elegant with an immortal aura. In the battle just now, she and Chu Feng were almost killed by Ling Weiho's soul light. It was extremely dangerous. Their corporeal bodies couldn't be used anymore and were in tatters. Even their souls were slightly dim. Both of them were heavily injured. After all, that wisp of soul light had the aura of a quasi-saint. It was already a miracle that they could withstand it and not die at their level. Smart. Ouyang Feng glanced at Ing Zhexian and sighed softly. "We've only come into contact with the troops of the martial god system since we came to this world and obtained their mutant technique. I reckon it's related to this. Are there any rather serious consequences?" asked Ing Zhexian. Ouyang Feng revealed a strange expression. This woman from the quasi-saint race was indeed intelligent. She could sense everything in advance. The problem is rather serious. Toad sighed softly. He really wanted to spit out a mouthful of saliva, but he swallowed it after some thought because this was soul light and spiritual energy. He didn't want to waste it. This action made the silver-haired little Lolita stare blankly. This was unbearable. It would be better to see him spit directly. This grandson Pu Lin told his bastard father Ling Weiho about the situation on the way to kill us. This old fellow is rather terrifying and very protective of his children. He has 6 sons. Back then, the third son was killed on the battlefield by a divine archer from the moon goddess system. He crossed the boundary that night and wiped out that team. He even killed the entire clan of that divine archer, cleansing it with blood. From infants who were a few months old to children who were 5 or 6 years old, he killed 8 of them. His methods were extremely cruel and exceptionally violent. Then, the experts from the moon goddess's side moved out to take revenge on him, but he was already prepared. He informed his backer in advance to help him fend off the disaster. They set up an ambush and killed another group of experts. Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian frowned when they heard what was said. This Ling Weiho would definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Wouldn't he go crazy after knowing that Pu Lin had been killed? In particular, he was a quasi-saint at the very least. That wisp of soul light just now was extremely terrifying and almost killed Chu Feng and Ing Zhexian. If it weren't for the wonderful 7 treasures technique, the two of them would certainly have exploded into two balls of bloody mist. Ouyang Feng sighed and said, "There's still one more thing that Fairy Ying guessed correctly. It's related to the mutant technique. This Mother of Asterisk Cur is a trap. Apart from attracting lightning strikes every month due to the excessive absorption of divinity granules, the evolvers of this world generally had very short lifespans. Some of them were even about the same as ordinary people." When Ouyang Feng said all this, Chu Feng frowned. He felt that the situation wasn't good. "Be more specific." According to a few secret reports that leaked out from the laboratories of a few deities in the Vicious Beast Plateau, many people believe that this is related to using mutant techniques to refine too many divinity granules and ancestral Tao matter. Chu Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. This special technique still had a great calamity. He understood from the start that any world would pay attention to balance. It was impossible for there to be a cultivation technique that defied the heavens to the extreme without paying a price. But now that he suddenly found out that his lifespan was going to be reduced, he still felt that the problem was serious. Ouyang Toad said the martial god and the moon goddess of the Vicious Beast Plateau are both researching it. From the perspective of the theory of destiny and the theory of evolution respectively, both of them are very reasonable. If one were to look at it from the perspective of destiny, it was because this kind of mutant technique had the harmony of the heavens. It was too ferocious in taking lives and simply stepping on other people's corpses to evolve and grow. Therefore, everything had its retribution in the end. Heaven and earth didn't tolerate it. Other than being struck by lightning from the heavens frequently, everyone's lifespan wasn't long because their lifespans were shortened because their killing nature was too heavy. Furthermore, all evolvers were very miserable in their later years. Practically none of them had a good ending, and even deities were no exception. Their later years would be extremely miserable. Some people ineffably went crazy and walked towards self-destruction, even exterminating the race they belonged to. Some powerhouses' blood, chi, suddenly dried up, and they rapidly aged. Their entire bodies cracked, and they died from the pain. There were also some people whose souls disintegrated like rotten flesh. Their soul light would rot, and they would become more miserable with each passing day in their later years. Their soul bodies would collapse, and they would suffer torment. Deities are the same as well. Each one is more unlucky than the last. When their strength weakens, they'll even be treated as prey by those who come after them. They'll be killed alive, and their divinity granules absorbed, and so on. This was what Ouyang Feng had searched in Pu Lin's mind. It made people feel terrified as they felt that the evolvers of this world didn't have a good ending in the end. Their later years were bleak. Even deities can't solve this problem. Their blood chi will dry up, their souls will collapse, and they'll suffer torment to death. Ying Xiao was horrified and felt a chill run down her spine. If this was the case, she might as well reject the mutant technique directly and return her own universe. But the mutant technique is like a divine-grade poppy. Who can give up on it for the sake of pursuing their own strength? Ouyang Feng sighed. It was rare for him to be serious. This was what he saw in Pu Lin's soul. Back then, Ling Weiho's grandfather was extremely powerful. He was a high-ranking champion who commanded countless armies, but in his later years, he was all skin and bones. He howled miserably day and night and didn't dare to stay by himself. But in the end, he was still incomparably miserable. First, half of his body was accidentally killed by an adult divine beast when it massacred a city. After that, a bolt of lightning struck his skull and destroyed 90% of his soul light. In the end, he only died after he was tortured and struggled for dozens of days. His subordinates all said that everything was because he massacred too many people back then. There was also the demon god from back then. In his later years, he was struck by lightning every day on the Vicious Beast Plateau. Every day, he would lose a portion of his body like charcoal. In the end, he was even ambushed by a newcomer and exploded while he was still alive. He was slowly refined for 100 days and suffered all kinds of humiliation and torture. That newcomer stepped on his corpse and ascended to become a deity. Only then did the demon god's miserable later years end. This was because the demon god also ascended to his position in this way back then. As a result, the evolvers of this world approved of the theory of destiny very much and believed that it was reasonable. Many things would often come true and there would be retribution. We'll also have such a miserable ending if we cultivate their mutant technique. Chu Feng didn't want to reduce his lifespan, nor was he willing to decline ineffably. Those situations were even more miserable than the birth, old age, sickness, and death of mortals. What was the goal of becoming an evolver? Wasn't it all for the sake of transcending? To be even more free and unfettered and unfettered. Yet these results were simply like a sharp sword hanging over their heads, enveloping their entire later years in a shadow. The silver-haired little Lolita widened her eyes and had a nervous expression as she said, "Elder sister, it's better if we go home and look for our mother. This world really doesn't have a sense of security. I don't want to be all skin and bones in my later years. Even more so, I don't want to be tormented by all kinds of accidents and die tragically in the end." Ying Zhixian was very calm as she asked Ouyang Feng, "What you said just now was the theory of destiny. There's also a theory of evolution. The theory of evolution is even more frightening. It says that the divinity granules of different living beings more or less have some exclusivity. In particular, the higher grade ancestral Taoist matter repels each other even more. Even though it looks like they've fused into one, when it reaches a certain stage, all kinds of reactions will occur between these substances, which will then lead to all kinds of chaos. Even if a deity in his later years cries out that there's a ghost and that a soul shackler from hell has come to claim his life, don't feel that it's abnormal, because he might really have seen something extraordinary. It might have been constructed and bred after the divinity granules and ancestral Taoist matter broke away. Chu Feng was speechless when he heard this. Were gods afraid of ghosts? But when he thought about it, the gods of this world had to die in the end, so he felt at ease. "Isn't there any other way to resolve this?" inquired Chu Feng. Ying Zhixian also looked at Ouyang Feng as she wanted to understand him in depth. She was as unresigned as Chu Feng. There's a kind of theory in Vicious Beast Plateau that says if one is sufficiently powerful, perhaps one can avoid everything and kill everything without fearing those so-called wretchedness. Of course, such a person hasn't appeared until now. Those who don't believe in heresy are all dead. Other than that, the deities are still searching for a path to go into the primal chaos. They have to traverse and cross over to other worlds. Different worlds might have different ways of thinking, and they want to be inspired to solve their own problems. To other worlds, Chu Feng was astonished. Ouyang Feng searched Pu Lin's soul and discovered that the entire Vicious Beast Plateau seemed to be the center of the world. Once they left this place, they would have to go to the primal chaos. Indeed, Vicious Beast Plateau is the center of this world. Other than that, there are a few abysses where divine beasts dwell. After that is the primal chaos. This world isn't as big as ours. According to the conjectures of this world's deities, this is a broken world. This kind of topic already touched upon the essence of this world. The deities of Vicious Beast Plateau's past generations had come into contact with Yin spirits from foreign realms and even Yang spirits from foreign realms. They guessed that this world might be adjacent to a vast Yin realm world, and it might also not be far from a Grand Yang realm. This was a world in between. Ying Zhixian and Chu Feng were visibly moved after Ouyang Feng spoke about these things. The deities of this world reckoned that they would deduce even more than this. Throughout the generations, some deities would set out on the road before they arrived in their later years in order to change their own destinies. But some deities died tragically as soon as they entered the primal chaos. Those who sent them off could see it with their own eyes, and there were also some who never returned. Died tragically in the primal chaos? Chu Feng was astonished. He was extremely astonished. Yes, that's right. There's a path at the border of the primal chaos. They didn't suddenly cross it, but rather, they could find the footprints of their predecessors. Ouyang Feng nodded. Following that, a horrified expression appeared on his face as he said, "That scene was a little wretched. It felt like they were going to hell and not the so-called complete universe." After that, Ouyang Feng displayed the scene he saw in Pu Lin's soul and the path adjacent to the primal chaos. That was a millstone that rotated slowly. If one wanted to cross over, they actually had to throw themselves into the millstone and experience being crushed. Some deities couldn't endure that trial, and their soul light collapsed and shattered. Some people were more fortunate because that millstone occasionally wouldn't rotate and wouldn't crush people inside. It was a smooth path, and there was a door of light inside the millstone. This completely depended on luck, and even the deities were no exception. Chu Feng was rather shocked when he saw the scene Ouyang Feng displayed. What did he see? That millstone was a little similar to the millstone in the radiant city of death in Purgatory, but it wasn't as big as the one in the city of death. The material was similar, and the effect was similar. He was convinced that there was indeed a path behind this millstone. There was a reincarnation path in Purgatory, but what path was it here? Where did it lead to? After a long time, Chu Feng opened his mouth and asked Ing Zhixian, "What do you think? Let's take action immediately and strive to find the most top-notch mutant technique in this world. Even if we can't use it, we'll try to obtain it first and leave it for later. At the same time, we'll study this world and search for sacred medicines and other things that are suitable for us. Of course, if we see through the essence and thoroughly understand this world, and it really isn't suitable for us, then we'll end our journey in this world in the shortest amount of time within a few days." Ing Zhixian was very decisive. She felt that the problem was extremely serious. All right, what was the final outcome of those who obtained the fortune from the Damung Pure Land shrine in the past and dreamed of 100 years in one night? Chu Feng inquired. "This is precisely what makes me tremble in fear." Ing Zhixian's expression was grave as she said, "Think about it carefully. Almost half of those well-known figures in the past met with accidents in the end and died a violent death in the universe. Back then, everyone thought that there were people who were jealous and secretly harmed them. But looking at it now, the way they died is somewhat similar to the later years of some powerhouses in this world." Once these words were spoken, Chu Feng almost broke out in a cold sweat from fright. Ing Zhixian explained that there were still some well-known figures whose situations in their later years weren't very good. Some died from qi deviation, and there were also some who met with ineffable misfortunes and died very miserably. In the end, there were also those who had a good ending, but there really weren't many. "What a scam! What a scam!" Ouyang Feng cried out. "We don't have time to delay. We'll take action immediately. If the situation isn't right, we'll leave right away," said Ing Zhixian. Chapter 805. "What are we going to do now?" asked Ouyang Feng. Chu Feng answered with an extremely certain tone. "You still dare to use the mutant technique?" Ouyang Feng was fearful. His squinting problem was cured. He was rather solemn now and didn't dare to be frivolous at all. "Can't you see that I'm injured to this extent? Besides, I've already practiced this kind of mutant technique. So what if I use it a few more times? What short lifespan and decline? I've taken divine medicine before. Normally speaking, I have an extra lifetime of lifespan compared to others. I'm not afraid." Chu Feng didn't care at all. "You've taken divine medicine from the Yin realm. Is it effective?" Ouyang Feng attacked him. He was also considered a divine beast in the Yin realm. But after he arrived here, the archers he encountered almost shot him to death. His soul light almost collapsed in an instant when the army roared in unison. He was a Yin spirit in this world. His divine beast bloodline was useless. Therefore, he felt that the divine medicine from the Yin realm would probably be discounted. "Brother-in-law, don't you want your life anymore? It's not just a matter of reducing your lifespan. There are all kinds of accidents, and you'll die a violent death," shouted the silver-haired little Lolita. She stared at him with her big, beautiful eyes and reminded him. Boom! In the end, she suffered a flick of Ing Zhixian's finger. She immediately covered her forehead and cried out in pain. She was warned not to address him carelessly. Ing Zhixian said, This kind of mutant technique is too strange. There's a huge problem with its nature. It might involve the origin of this world's evolutionary civilization and is a great calamity. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. In the end, Chu Feng didn't believe in heresy. He came out of purgatory alive and circled around the millstone in the radiant city of death many times. He also walked the reincarnation road. Why would he be afraid of a mutant technique? Especially since there was a millstone in this world that led to an unknown place. He felt that it should have some ineffable connection with the millstone in the radiant city of death. The wasteland was very vast and spacious, but it only belonged to the periphery of Vicious Beast Plateau. Not long after, they discovered a small group of more than 10 people. This was another small team of 50 knights that Pu Lin brought. In order to find Chu Feng, Pu Lin divided the 50 experts into 3 groups and searched this region. There wasn't any suspense in this battle. Chu Feng and Ying Zhixian joined hands and got rid of 3 divine archers. As for the remaining knights, he tried to use the light of Yin and Yang to deal with them, and used the soul bell to blast them. Not long after, a rain of light soared in this place. Chu Feng urged his mutant technique. As expected, he didn't believe in heresy and started to absorb the divinity granules. Very soon, his dim soul gradually became brilliant again. All the injuries he had suffered were repaired by the divinity granules, and he seemed to be as good as new. My son, your father will definitely take revenge and wipe out this hatred. I will kill those Yin spirits. Ling Weiho's low roar shook the entire city, shocking everyone. He was in charge of guarding a city at the edge of the Vicious Beast Plateau. His power couldn't be said to be great, but he could absolutely call the wind and summon the rain in his territory. After that, squads of knights rushed out of the city one after another. All of them were riding barbarian birds as they came out of the Vicious Beast Plateau and flew towards the wastelands in the outer regions. At the same time, portraits of Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng were also distributed to all parties and requested to be apprehended together. In a day's time, Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng became wanted criminals. A bounty was posted on the wastelands and Vicious Beast Plateau for an extremely expensive price of 2 jars of divine beast blood. This was the divine blood bestowed to Ling Weiho by the higher-ups, and he took it out to apprehend the culprits. Not long after, the entire wastelands were shaken. For instance, the purple gold rats hiding in the cracks in the ground erupted into a rat tide as they frantically searched for Chu Feng. For instance, a few bird species evolvers flapped their wings and circled above the vast wastelands as divine rays shot out from their eyes. There were also silver-scaled wolves. They were in large groups as they howled. The densely packed silver scales on their bodies shone and illuminated the wastelands in a silvery white color. This race was also mobilizing as a whole. Chu Feng and the others encountered trouble not long after they left. They were discovered by a few falcons, and they were chased by them. In the end, they killed a few ferocious birds and seized their corporeal bodies to deceive them. Without a corporeal body to hide their souls, they would definitely suffer a great loss. If they were discovered, they might really die. Without a doubt, such a great commotion affected far and wide. Chu Feng and the others cultivated yang souls and could occupy the corporeal bodies of other living beings. It was enough for them to muddle through. But to the others who came from the same world as him, it was a disaster. In this region, a few people were very unlucky. Because they were Yin spirits, they were also targeted and were within the range of the pursuit. This caused a group of old monsters in Damning Pure Land's Divine Hall to be dumbstruck. That was because these so-called geniuses were returning in groups. Whenever they were annihilated, it wasn't just 1 or 2 of them, but a group of them. Only those who escaped into the moon goddesses and other deities' territories could escape this calamity. Otherwise, they would all be attacked within this range. This grandson Ling Weiho is really ruthless. He actually took out 2 jars of divine beast blood. It made me want to surrender myself and run away after receiving the divine beast blood, Ouyang Feng mumbled. He really did ponder over it wretchedly for a while to see if it was feasible. After that, he understood that the divine beast blood was in Ling Weiho's hands, and that he would personally bestow it to people who could provide clues. Ouyang Feng didn't dare to go even if he was beaten to death. Along the way, Chu Feng and the others got rid of a few knights who were all Ling Weiho subordinates. Chu Feng used a special technique to absorb the divinity granules many times. Not only did his injuries heal, but the degree of vigor of his soul light was almost comparable to that of an evolver at the Golden Body Realm. Ouyang Feng's eyes turned red. In the end, he said ruthlessly, "I'm going to stake it all too. What's there to be afraid of? I'm a divine beast. My lifespan far exceeds that of a normal living being. It's equivalent to having a second life, so I'm not afraid of the so-called reduction of my lifespan. Goddamn it, Divine King Ouyang is throwing caution to the wind in order to become a person at the Golden Body Realm, to break through to the Saint Realm, and to illuminate the heavens." After that, Toad's soul light started to rise explosively and soared all the way because he was very crazy and simply somewhat unrestrained. Chu Feng warned him and said, "Be careful. This isn't just a matter of reducing your lifespan, but it also involves getting struck by lightning. Lightning will come knocking on your door every month, and you'll get struck by lightning if you overdo it." Ouyang Feng shivered when he heard this. He had seen related incidents from Pu Lin's memories. Speaking of this, there are indeed formidable people in this world. There are scenes in Pu Lin's grandson's memories. He said that some people successively crossed lightning tribulations after a month. Their strength is terrifying. Among them, Pu Lin's second brother was a fierce person. He absorbed too many divinity granules in a certain month and drew in 2 lightning tribulations in the end. In the end, he successively crossed them. I don't know how strong this world's heavenly tribulation is exactly. If it's the same as our universe, people who can successively cross 2 lightning tribulations definitely aren't simple, said Chu Feng. I looked at Pu Lin's memories. There are also powerhouses who have successively crossed 3 lightning tribulations, and even exceptional geniuses who have successively crossed 4 lightning tribulations. As for those deities, they were even more outrageous when they were young. There are records of successively crossing 5 lightning tribulations. Don't be envious of others. At the very least, you'll have the title of a powerhouse who has successively crossed 3 lightning tribulations, said Chu Feng as he patted his shoulder. What? That can't be right. Ouyang Feng's expression changed right away. Do you think you've absorbed a small amount of divinity matter? Your strength has advanced by leaps and bounds. Even if you use divine beast blood and sacred medicine to baptize away a portion of your karma, your improvement is still too fierce. In terms of soul light alone, you can practically be considered an expert at the Golden Body Realm. So much so that Chu Feng reckoned that he and Toad might have to cross 4 lightning tribulations according to the standards that Ouyang Feng mentioned. Damn it, this won't do. The lightning in this world is young. It said that it's very powerful and can strike and burn the physical bodies and souls of the living beings in this world. We've just transitioned from Yin spirits to Yang souls, and we don't even have physical bodies that belong to us. Aren't we just courting death? He was a little anxious. What's there to be afraid of? There are physical bodies everywhere in this wasteland, said Chu Feng. However, Ying Zhixian's words dealt a blow to him, and she said, "You haven't carefully experienced that the physical bodies we occupy aren't stable. Even if we're Yang souls, we can't occupy a physical body for a long time. We'll have to change bodies after a long period of time." Chu Feng hurriedly comprehended and circulated his breathing technique. After that, he felt a little sluggish and was immediately startled. His heart trembled, and he was a little dumbfounded. They still had to cross the tribulation? Could it be that they had to rely on their souls to withstand the lightning strikes? Just thinking about it made his head swell, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Oh no, it's extremely likely that we'll have to cross 4 lightning tribulations after absorbing so many divinity granules. It'll even be on par with the divine spirits when they were young. It'll be the legendary 5 lightning tribulations. Chu Feng's head swelled as he paced back and forth. Are these divine beast blood and sacred medicine still useful? Sacred medicine can still increase your strength, but do you dare to use it? The heavenly tribulation that you attract corresponds to your strength. 4 or 5 terrifying heavenly tribulations are linked together. Without a physical body, the higher the level of the lightning, the more disadvantageous it is for us. As for the divine beast blood, we don't have yin qi on us anymore, so there's no need to waste it. Once we fail to cross the tribulation, we'll just return to our original universe. Ing Zhixian's light words calmed Ouyang Feng down a little, but he was still unwilling. Chu Feng naturally didn't want to return. Brother-in-law, I'll accompany you to cross the tribulation when the time comes. I don't want to stay in this world at all. I really want to go home and find my mother, said the little Lolita, who had triggered her big eyes. In the end, Chu Feng entered the Vicious Beast Plateau and crossed a large region to arrive at the region ruled by the Moon Goddess. The plateau was extremely dangerous. There were some ancient trees and forests where vicious beasts roamed about. They were all giant beasts with abnormally tyrannical strength. In reality, the region was very vast. When they passed through here, it wasn't far from the so-called 1-month deadline to cross the tribulation. Prepare to cross the tribulation. Chu Feng lamented. He reckoned that the time was almost up. They came to the region ruled by the Moon Goddess this time because they were aiming for the Moon Goddess mutant technique. Because the atmosphere here was relatively relaxed, the checks weren't strict. Moreover, the Moon Goddess liked to choose disciples. They really wanted to deceive her and obtain the highest inheritance of a deity to obtain the ultimate mutant technique. At the same time, they wanted to understand the millstone near the primal chaos and get to the bottom of it. And on this day, the group of people from Mount Eternal finally entered the foreign domain. It's so warm. I feel like I've finally come back to life. Oh my God, this world actually has yang qi. Even though it's not very abundant, it's much better than the netherworld. After entering the foreign domain, young lady, she was the first to shout. She was so moved that she looked like she was about to cry. Hee-haw, Grandpa Donkey is dying from the heat. What the hell is this place? Cried the old donkey. Big Black Yak, Yellow Cattle, Zhou Quan, Wu Qifeng, the old llama, the Mastiff King, and a large group of people had arrived. Yao Yao was the leader among them, and they all stood behind her. Yao Yao was peerless in her soul form. She revealed an odd expression after arriving in this world. She felt abundant yang qi and activated the robbery induction breathing technique. Her whole body felt comfortable. It's a little strange, she said to herself, but she was fearless because she was skilled. Chapter 806. Young lady, she came from the Yang realm, which was the true human world. Her identity made the great demons of Kunlun flabbergasted when they first learned of it. They felt as if they had seen a mythical character. But now, young lady she from the Yang realm turned pale because of a place. How could they not be shocked? Could there be a place that transcended the human world? The Black Yak, Old Llama, Wu Qifeng, and the others were slightly disappointed. They had lived for most of their lives before they knew that they were ghosts, spirits, and there was still the true Yang realm. Now, young lady Xi's reaction was too abnormal. Only Yao Yao could remain calm and comprehend the difference between this world and the earth. What kind of place is the land of the fallen? Yellow Cattle asked. He was now a child with loose golden hair and a delicate and beautiful face. Young lady, she introduced. It used to be a very terrifying world that represented blood, chaos, slaughter, and destruction. The Yang realm was once attacked, and countless people died. They once tore a corner of the Yang realm apart. Their army attacked, and not even a blade of grass was left. Every creature was a natural warmonger and evolved through killing. They absorbed the divinity from the opponent's body to advance and become stronger the more they fought. The evolvers of the land of the fallen once broke through the border of the Yang realm and killed billions of creatures in a day. They were quite bloodthirsty and warlike. Zhou, she of the same family, are you sure this is the land of the fallen that attacked the Yang realm? Zhou Quan was moved. He felt rather horrified when he asked like this. What kind of place was the Yang realm? It was a place that these people had to look up to. There were many powerhouses there and many fierce people who could kill heaven illuminators. In the end, it was still attacked. In the eyes of this group of people from the Yin realm, the Yang realm was too terrifying. Its divine skills were so complicated that it made people feel suffocated. The evolvers, they were all high and mighty. Many orthodoxies have been passed down for millions of years, and their breathing techniques were complete and unfathomable. There were even some powerhouses who dared to kill gods and live for countless years. It was simply unimaginable. So much so that even young lady she herself said that she simply couldn't see through how deep the waters of the Yang realm were. That was because the seemingly tranquil orthodoxy could possibly have a great authority of a certain era, a taboo character. Once provoked and jumped out, it would be a monstrous disaster. These were all said by young lady she in the past. Therefore, everyone's expression changed at this moment as they felt fear and reverence toward this world. They were extremely powerful. They tore apart a corner of the Yang realm in a single day. They marched straight in and killed countless people, annihilating dozens of orthodoxies that had been passed down for millions of years. At that time, they shocked the entire Yang realm. Young lady, she narrated the achievements of the land of the fallen. Even Yao Yao revealed an astonished expression. She listened attentively, and when her eyes opened and closed, multicolored soul light flickered. Back then, when the evolvers from the land of the fallen attacked the Yang realm, they directly tore apart the primal chaos and killed their way over. This kind of slogan, this kind of spirit, shocked many orthodoxies back then. What kind of place was the Yang realm? What they knew was the Yang realm was the Yang realm. However, this group of people shouted about destroying the Yang realm as soon as they appeared. They shouted about taking revenge and killing all of their enemies. That battle made people tremble in fear. Dozens of strong evolutionary sects and high-ranked races were uprooted in a single day. That battle was the first battle in the mortal realm after many years of peace, and it caused a huge sensation. Is the land of the fallen so scary? The Siberian tiger exclaimed. They were worried about their own situation and had a bad feeling about it. They had originally come here to train themselves, but now they felt like they had fallen into a wolf's den or a devil's den. The people of this world were so belligerent. If they really found out, they would probably not have a good ending. Yes, it's very terrifying. It caused the people at the border of the Yang realm to be plunged into misery and suffering. Many races were exterminated and many people died. Young lady, she nodded. What happened next? Zhou Quan asked. All I can say is that the mortal realm is unfathomable. You'll never know how many terrifying existences are lurking in the shadows. At that time, there was a powerhouse who made a move and called some powerful figures to directly kill that group of invaders. They fought until the borders of the Yang realm, where stars fell and blood dyed the scorched earth red. Young lady, she sighed. This was considered a secret. For some reason, the powerhouse who took action didn't allow it to be recorded and intentionally concealed the truth. The main reason was that young lady she's family was truly not ordinary, which was why she knew some of the situation. A powerful being went to kill the great army of the fallen land, but was willing to not leave his name. Yellow Cattle was surprised. Yes, my grandfather once commented that the person was afraid of the other sleeping taboo existences in the Yang realm interfering. That powerhouse didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble, so he was very low-key before and after he took action. My grandfather also didn't really understand. After all, he wasn't even born during the era of the war. Young lady, she learned bits and pieces of the truth from her grandfather. She said that when the Yang realm powerhouse led some powerful figures to attack, He had a disdainful expression and berated the evolvers of the fallen land as demons and ghosts. He said that they were purely courting death if they dared to come for revenge. It wasn't difficult to see that the two sides already had a grudge. The people of the fallen land didn't want to attack the Yang realm for no reason. "Young lady," she said, "in that battle, the powerhouse who took action was too powerful. Even his youngest disciple killed 13 fallen gods and demons by himself." Gods and demons. The big black yak's expression stiffened, and he was quite shocked. What level of evolver was this? It sounded scary. "Young lady," she said, "that's right, they were gods and demons. They surpassed the heaven illuminators you speak of. At that time, the fallen land came menacingly and used the power of an entire world. Naturally, they were terrifying, but they were still killed." Everyone listened in a daze. They deeply felt the terror of the Yang realm. Just how deep was the water there? Previously, they still felt that the fallen land was very powerful and heaven-defying. In the end, they actually heard such an outcome. A powerhouse from a Yang realm led a few friends and disciples to eliminate the great army of an entire world. "Young lady," she said, "at that time, many orthodoxies in the Yang realm were also quite shocked when they found out about the secret. They didn't expect such an outcome. Even we ourselves felt that the Yang realm was unfathomable. There was a reason why few people dared to jump out and claim to be supreme." Following that, she said many places in the Yang realm said that there were powerhouses hibernating. People didn't believe it first, but after this battle, they didn't dare to be careless anymore. For example, the Cloud Dream Pool, the Qixia Mountain Range, the Fallen Phoenix Ridge, and many other places had taboo legends. Those evolvers from ancient times should have all died. However, since the occasional appearance of those almighty beings, no one dared to jump to conclusions. Some people even said that some of the powerhouses from the past are still alive and waiting for something. They're all accumulating power. Even my grandfather had to consult his own great-grandfather about that kind of matter. "Isn't your grandfather a very powerful person?" Zhou Quan was almost speechless. He knew from young lady Xi's past conversations that her family was extraordinarily powerful. "Yes, my grandfather is the master of a clan. That's on the surface, but you have to know that some imperial dynasties have been passed down for millions of years. There are even many evolver sects that have been around for tens of millions of years. Do you dare to say that the most outstanding evolver in their history is dead? Perhaps they're still struggling at death's door and belong to the dark forces. They're taboo monsters that can wash mountains and rivers in blood once they erupt. My grandfather is only the master of a clan on the surface." "Son, the old donkey couldn't even call out nimbly. The group of people were also quite shocked. Now, they understood a little why Yao Yao's grandfather was so powerful and extraordinary. He was still the mother gold planted in him by some powerhouse and became a cultivation furnace. That kind of powerhouse who had lived for who knew how many years and should have died a long time ago was too abnormal. Why do I feel that the Yin realm is too small and the Yang realm is the true world? It's a terrifying and brilliant stage," the Manchurian tiger muttered. The group of people couldn't help but nod. They deeply felt this way, and at the same time, they were all incomparably reverent. "Young lady," she nodded and said, "even in the Yang realm, our native sects can't estimate how big the world is, how many primitive races there are, and how vast the heaven and earth is. Just those legendary lands and the powerhouses of various periods are enough to make our hearts tremble if they're still alive." Everyone opened their mouths, but couldn't say anything. There are dozens of godlike branch races that separated from the human race, such as the Heavenly Eye race, the Sacred Blood race, and the Human King race. It's just that they've been extinct for many years. Legend has it that they have their own circles, and those who haven't reached that level simply don't have the qualifications to come into contact with them. This was only the human race, let alone other races. "Young lady," she said that there was once an immemorial Evolvers Alliance. They were all powerhouses among the Evolvers who had transformed into human forms and completely cast off their own races. That was even more terrifying. It was reported that the reason why the human race separated into many branches was because some of them were originally other races that had completely transformed into human forms and were exceptionally powerful. Young lady, she said, sigh, that's why I always feel pressured every time I travel to some legendary places in the Yang realm, such as the Great Cloud Dream Marsh, the ancient Embark Temple, the immortal Burial Swamp, and so on. I'm afraid that a powerhouse will appear. It's really unfathomable, and the various waters of the Yang realm are too deep. The more everyone understood, the more apprehensive they were about the Yang realm. That was the true human world. Comparatively, the Yin realm was too small and really resembled a pond. Moreover, they had encountered another such pond, such as here, the land of the fallen. The Horse King said, let's talk about the land of the fallen and understand it clearly. They threatened to conquer the Yang realm and once slaughtered billions of creatures in one day. The evolvers in this place are too terrifying. We'll become their prey if we're careless. Young Lady Xi's face was pale precisely because the people in this world were bloodthirsty and warlike. They came over in this state and didn't even have a physical body. She reckoned that they would only be a dish, so she was very worried. Legend has it that the land of the fallen was destroyed and only 2 or 3 kittens were left at most. Even this world was shattered, so why did it appear now? Young lady, she was suspicious. Yao Yao closed her eyes and was carefully comprehending. She suddenly opened them and said, there's something wrong with this world. The laws are incomplete and the order of time is terrifying. It's suspected that someone has interfered with it. Her spiritual level was extremely high, and she could comprehend the laws and order of this world. Her heaven-defying aptitude could ineffably sense it and come to such a conclusion. The demonic ancestral cauldron hadn't disappeared yet. It was shrouded in a ball of light and opened up a passageway to Mount Eternal. It emitted a mechanical voice and was actually rather emotional as it said, amazing, you can even sense this. Indeed, the flow of time in this world is extremely fast. In our universe, a very short period of time has passed, but several years have already passed here. Young lady, she was astonished and said, I remember now. Someone once said that the reason why the Almighty who destroyed the land of the fallen wanted to conceal the results of the battle and wasn't willing to announce it was probably because he wanted to refine this world into a treasure and turn it into a time weapon. Chapter 807. Once these words were spoken, the group was stunned and then horrified. This Yang realm powerhouse was too terrifying. He could easily refine a realm and forge it into a time weapon. What was his background? What level had this person evolved to? This really made people tremble with fear from the bottom of their hearts. The energy is limited, so I need to leave. If you want to return, please come here. The realm wall is the weakest, and there's a natural spatial vortex. I can sense it if you rush in and will guide you back. After saying this, the demon ancestral cauldron disappeared with a swoosh. There was indeed a spatial vortex there. Princess Yao Yao, what do we do next? These people looked at Yao Yao. Yellow cattle, and she were no exception. They were very humble and felt a headache coming on. Let me familiarize myself with the order of this world first so that I can adapt to it, said Yao Yao. The group was dumbfounded, directly resonating with the order runes of this realm. Wasn't this just entering the path and then comprehending it? Others had to go into seclusion and painstakingly comprehend it, but she could do it directly. Even Xi's eyes widened in shock. In the Yang realm, such geniuses were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Creatures with this kind of aptitude would be chosen by those old monsters and personally trained. For example, the legendary powerhouses who occasionally appeared would only choose geniuses like this if they would choose disciples. She cried out in surprise. After saying what was in her heart, the group was dumbfounded again. The Black Yak, the Old Llama, Wu Qifeng, and the others were speechless. Princess Yao Yao was known to be unrivaled in the ancient universe, but there were still creatures with this kind of talent in the Yang realm. Moreover, there were generations after generations. This, hurt them and made them disheartened. How could they compare? How many Yao Yao were there in the Yang realm since ancient times? There was no harm without comparison. After a day and a night, Yao Yao's resonance with the order ended. She opened her eyes, and her soul light was dazzling, reflecting many repeated runes. She said, "Let's walk around and familiarize and understand this world." Her soul light had already adapted to the land of the fallen. At this moment, her body emitted strands of yin qi. Yang qi fell from the sky and poured into her graceful body. It made a sizzling sound as though it was a baptism. Everyone stared blankly. Her adaptability was really too strong. This was the baptism soul light, and she was transforming into a yang soul. She's unrivaled throughout the ancient universe and suppressed the golden generation to the point where they can't even raise their heads. It's really not just for show. A group of people mumbled in the back. They felt that Yao Yao was too abnormal. Not long after, the chi-chi sounds on Yao Yao's body gradually subsided. The yang energy in her soul light became much denser, and some of the yin energy was forcibly smelted out. This kind of method made young lady, she's little mouth form an O shape. She was extremely shocked. Was this even possible? In the long run, wouldn't he be able to return to the mortal world? Wasn't it said that reincarnation in someone else's body and returning to the world of the living were rare events? Young lady, she was suspicious, and her heart couldn't calm down. Yao Yao opened her mouth and said, "We lack the corresponding spiritual objects of heaven and earth. There must be substances rich in yang qi in this world that can help us quickly wash away the yin qi in our soul light. Relying on ourselves to refine it is somewhat slow." Then she walked out first and began their journey of exploration in this world. The group of people had only walked for more than 500 kilometers when they revealed odd expressions. That was because they saw portraits posted in the wasteland. Why did they look like Chu Feng and Ouyang the Toad? It could only be said that the level of the person who drew the paintings was extremely poor. The paintings didn't resemble them, but the group of people from Mount Eternal still seriously suspected that it was them when these two people stood together. Don't tell me that Chu Feng and the others went to the so-called damning pure land to dream of 100 years in one night to enter this place, the big black yak mumbled. After walking for another 50 kilometers, they finally found even more direct evidence. They found out from the mouth of a vicious bird that Ling Weiho was about to go crazy for close to a month. He was chasing Chu Feng and a black swan with a turtle shell on its back all over the world. He swore to avenge his son. The group of people was dumbfounded. There was no doubt about it. That was definitely Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng. Had they really come to the same world? Young lady, she immediately laughed and said, "Wah, Chu Feng is so miserable. He really isn't a good person. No matter where he goes, he's a scourge. Now he's being chased. I say, let's hurry and save brother Chu Feng. Don't let Ling Weiho kill him," said the Mastiff King. Yao Yao shook her head and said, "This is a test for him. He's not a bean sprout in a greenhouse. If we didn't come to this world, will we have to wait for someone else to save him?" Yellow Cattle, Zhou Quan, and the big black yak wanted to say that they were going to save Chu Feng, but they couldn't open their mouths after hearing Yao Yao's words. They knew that Yao Yao wasn't leaving him in the lurch. Instead, she had high hopes for Chu Feng and wanted to see how far he could go. Normally, Yao Yao didn't give him any care and didn't even give him a secret book. This wasn't because she didn't care for him, but because she longed for him to rise. Back then, Yao Yao was already the strongest. She didn't need others to repeat her path. What she wanted was a self-reliant Chu Feng and not a second Yao Yao. Soon after, the big black yak cried out strangely because he learned from a silver pangolin that Ling Weiho's reward was divine beast blood. It contained surging yang qi and could cleanse the corporeal body and soul light. Yao Yao was astonished. A charming smile appeared on her beautiful face as she said, "Ling Weiho of the quasi-saint realm has divine beast blood? That's him. Wait for me to refine some medicinal herbs and cleanse part of the yin qi in his soul light. Then I'll go find Ling Weiho." In a split second, This group of people observe a moment of silence for Ling Wei-ho. It wasn't good to be targeted by anyone, but he just had to be targeted by Yao Yao, who was unrivaled in the same realm throughout the ancient starry sky. He definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Son, the old donkey wanted to call out, but he was very restrained when facing Yao Yao and didn't dare to do so. He said, this can be considered as indirectly saving Chu Feng. When Yao Yao heard this, she nodded and said, what you said makes sense. I don't want Ling Weiho's life later. I just want to rob him of his divine beast blood. Princess, you really want to test Chu Feng to the end. Zhou Quan observed a moment of silence for Chu Feng. If the people in this wasteland knew of their conversation, their jaws would probably drop from shock. Who was Ling Weiho? He was abnormally powerful. He was at the level of a quasi-saint great circle and could become a saint at any time. Moreover, he was far more tyrannical than people at the same level. He had once crossed 3 lightning tribulations, and his bloodline and innate talent were incomparably shocking. Yao Yao brought them along as they walked on the plateau. Along the way, she paid attention to some plants. She was once left with only a wisp of obsession and had no hope of living for a long time. As the saying goes, a prolonged illness makes a doctor. In order to save herself, she had flipped through all kinds of ancient books and was very familiar with medicinal herbs. Some medicinal herbs were extremely beneficial to the soul. In this world full of yang qi, there was no need to think too much about it. The effects would be even better as it could help them wash away part of the yin qi. At this moment, on Vicious Beast Plateau, Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng were worried. Their soul light was already comparable to an evolver at the Golden Arhut realm, but a calamity had also arrived. The people of this world had never dared to be as crazy as them and absorb a large amount of divine matter in a short period of time. They were destined to be struck by lightning, and many times at that. In the vicinity, the forest was verdant and ancient trees towered into the sky. A few sparkling and translucent lakes not far away were like enormous gemstones embedded on Vicious Beast Plateau. In the depths of the forest, beast roars shook the heavens. There is absolutely no lack of terrifying creatures on this Vicious Beast Plateau, but this region was still relatively safe. At this moment, as soon as Chu Feng raised his head a little, he could see black clouds pressing down and blood-colored lightning flashing past. On the other hand, green lightning streaked across the top of his head as soon as Ouyang Feng opened his mouth to speak. The scene was extremely horrifying. That lightning would arrive at any time and strike them. F***ck me. What's the meaning of this? Why is yours blood-colored while the one hanging above my head is a ball of green light? This lightning is F***king green. Ouyang Feng was extremely indignant. This was still differential treatment. The color of the lightning was different, which made him rather annoyed as he felt that he was being discriminated against. While he was speaking, that green lightning interweaved and enveloped the top of his head. It crackled and would strike down violently at any time. Chu Feng was very calm as he said, "Isn't this very normal? Look at you. You're a scapegoat and a cuckold. You're simply a perfect match. No matter how you look at it, it should be like this. Get lost." Ouyang Feng was anxious and wanted to fight him. "You better behave yourself. The heavenly tribulation is coming. Save some strength," Chu Feng warned him. Not far away, Ing Xiaoxiao's large eyes had already turned into crescent moons from smiling. She was happy when she saw Ouyang Feng getting anxious. Ing Zhixian was very calm. She reckoned that she would also have to cross the tribulation soon. She didn't absorb the divinity granules crazily like Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng, but it wasn't little either. Her soul light was already close to the golden body realm. Ouyang Feng gnashed his teeth as he looked at the sky and said, "Damned heavens, if you want to strike, then strike. Hurry up and give me a good time. Why are you always hanging above my head? You're deliberately trying to anger Uncle Ouyang to death, aren't you?" To be honest, his and Chu Feng's hearts were beating like drums. They didn't have the slightest bit of confidence because they didn't have corporeal bodies and were in soul form. If they really were to be struck by lightning, it would definitely be very tragic. Generally speaking, spirit bodies were most afraid of lightning strikes. But it was completely useless if they were to occupy the corporeal bodies of other living beings to cross the tribulation. Their corporeal bodies and souls weren't compatible. They could only withstand a few bolts of lightning and might even drag them down. Say, how many heavenly tribulations will there be this time? Ouyang Feng asked Chu Feng guiltily. Chu Feng gave him a sidelong glance and said, just based on the color of those lightning bolts above your head, you'll definitely have to perform a hat trick. You'll have to wear a hat no matter what. This time, can't you say something nice? Ouyang Feng really wanted to use his long beak to peck him and said, if I had a corporeal body, I wouldn't be afraid even if 3 heavenly tribulations came. But I really don't have the confidence to use my soul light to forcefully resist it now. After that, he glanced at Chu Feng again and said, I feel that you'll most likely have a great 4 delights. Shut up, you black swan. You represent inauspiciousness. Don't speak irresponsibly. In the distance, Ing Jiaxian and the silver-haired little Lolita were speechless. These fellow sufferers were already at this stage, yet they were still having internal strife. One had to know that lightning could strike down at any time. Crack! As expected, they had just finished speaking when a green bolt of lightning fell and struck Ouyang Feng until black smoke came out of his mouth. His soul light flickered violently as he plunged head first into the ground. But very quickly, he jumped up again and said, this time, you sneak attacked me. It's really coming. Give me a different color of lightning. He clamored. Bang! This time, 5 bolts of lightning struck down in succession. They were all lush green, and not only in name, but also in reality. Ouyang Feng finally shut his mouth. He didn't have the leisure to challenge, and began to resist with all his might. Without the protection of a corporeal body, he could only rely on his soul light to display spiritual martial arts and fight head-on. Crack! Chu Feng's heavenly tribulation arrived as well. The blood-colored lightning struck him, and he was in intense pain as his soul light flickered intensely. This was heavenly lightning with dense yang qi. Every bolt was very terrifying. In a split second, the two of them almost burned as they were drowned in scarlet and green lightning that bombarded them indiscriminately. Ouch! I can't take it anymore. I'm going to be roasted. It's really hard to bear without a corporeal body. Even my soul light is about to scatter. Damn, villainous heavens, you're still using green lightning to cover the top of my head. Are you courting death? Do you think Uncle Ouyang is easy to bully? After Ouyang Feng stabilized a little, he dawdled without end. He mumbled and cursed the heavens over there. Shut up. You're disturbing my tribulation, shouted Chu Feng from the other side. The Ying sisters let out a long sigh of relief. Seeing that the two of them could still open their mouths to speak, this meant that they hadn't reached the worst moment yet. There shouldn't be any danger to their lives yet. Brother-in-law, hold on, shouted the silver-haired little Lolita. Ing Jiaxian's face immediately darkened as she glared at her younger sister. At the same time, a figure was currently approaching from the distance. She was graceful and beautiful as she swayed gracefully. It could be said that she was a natural beauty. It was precisely Qin Luoyin. There was also a ball of light beside her, and one could see a young human-shaped soul light inside. It was dawdling with her, and was even more talkative than Ouyang Feng. Mother, look at you. You haven't even given birth to me, and you already want to get rid of me. After that, you even schemed with that old witch from damning Pure Land to send me into the black dog stomach and even wanted to seal me for 100 years. Tell me, is there such a mother? The little Taoist came out and was arguing with Qin Luoyin. It was clear that Qin Luoyin had gotten used to hearing this recently. She was still very guilty before, but now that she heard this kind of words, she immediately pulled his ear and hurried on her way. Stop! Don't pull me. I say, Mother, I helped you this time. I used the ball of qi that I was born with to help you cleanse all your yin qi and become a yang soul. Tell me, what is this called? The little Taoist hasn't even been born yet, and I'm already worrying and exerting myself for you without any complaints or regrets. Are you really my mother? Could it be that you're an adversary that the heavens specially sent to punish me? All right, mother, what exactly is going on between you and my father? I see that he's only 14 or 15 years old. He's too unreasonably young. Do you like a soda? Ouch. Stop. Don't pull my ear. I'm not talking anymore. Am I not speaking the truth? I'm just curious. That biological father of mine really isn't that old. Mother, can you really lay your hands on him? After that, Qin Luoyin exploded. Even though this damned child helped her cleanse all her yin qi and made her feel guilty and distressed, she couldn't stand this little Taoist's endless nagging. Furthermore, there were all questions that were difficult to speak of. It drove her crazy as she pulled his ear and hurried on her way. Mother, I'm just very curious. How did you get to know my father? Why does he look a little familiar to me? I feel like I've seen him somewhere before, but I just can't remember. When Qin Luoyin heard this, she could only continue to tidy him up. At the same time, she felt a little uncertain in her heart because this damned child was simply a monster. He knew everything. She now believed that there really were heavenly infants and immortal infants in this world. Qin Luoyin discovered the tribulation lightning in front of her. She approached this place and just happened to see Chu Feng, Ying Zhixian, and the others. Brother-in-law, hold on. The silver-haired little Lolita shouted. The graceful Qin Luoyin rushed over just in time to hear it. She was abnormally stunned before looking at Ying Zhixian with a shocked expression. Originally, Qin Luoyin discovered an acquaintance who could even be considered a bosom friend. Qin Luoyin felt that she could finally take care of one of her own. In the end, she actually heard Ying Xiaoxiao call Chu Feng brother-in-law. Ying Zhixian also saw Qin Luoyin, and their eyes met. At this moment, the little Taoist naturally saw Chu Feng and immediately called out, "Father!" In reality, Chu Feng had already seen them a long time ago. Even though he was crossing the tribulation, he was still very shocked when he saw Qin Luoyin leading a young, human-shaped soul light over. When the little Taoist shouted, "Father!" Chu Feng was really shocked, and he immediately staggered. The lightning earlier didn't even strike him flying, but now he almost fell head first onto the ground. After that, he was drowned in lightning, and he immediately let out a blood-curdling screech. Not far away, Ying Zhixian and the silver-haired little Lolita were also stunned by the little Taoist's startling cry. Chapter 808. Blood-colored lightning and green lightning interweaved and reflected each other in the sky. On the ground, Chu Feng staggered and directly fell to the ground. He let out his first blood-curdling screech after encountering the heavenly tribulation. He was drowned in lightning because he lost control of his mind in that split second just now. He was thoroughly startled and couldn't even stand firm before being drowned by the blood-colored lightning. In a sense, the little Taoist calling him father almost caused him to be killed in the lightning. This was practically a life-hastening talisman in name and in reality. Chu Feng's heart was violently shaken and great waves rose and fell. He really couldn't calm down. How did he get another son out of the blue? This really made his vision go black. Crack! Blood-colored lightning fell like a waterfall. It was bright red and sparkling as it poured onto his soul light, causing him to groan as wisps of green smoke emitted from his soul light. Chu Feng was horrified and hurriedly focused his mind to calm down. He would really be struck to death if he continued to be distracted. He seemed to be able to smell the charred smell of his soul. Whoosh! In a split second, he circulated the robbery induction breathing technique and stood up with difficulty. His soul light throbbed and blood-colored lightning surrounded his entire body. Lightning flickered and curled around him as his soul breathed, emitting a glaring bloody light. At this moment, the martial god's mutant technique was useless. He still had to rely on his most powerful breathing technique to resist this blood-colored lightning at the crucial moment. Boom! The earth was blasted into pieces. The mountain rocks collapsed, and the towering ancient trees turned into ashes. Even the small lake adjacent to this place was evaporated by the blood-colored lightning. Where did this child come from? Was it Qin Luoyin's child? Chu Feng looked into the distance, and his vision really went black. He didn't even have a wife, yet a child was born? Who should be responsible for who? He wanted to cry and speechlessly asked the heavens. Chi! A glaring bolt of lightning fell and blasted the top of his head. Chu Feng staggered, and smoke came out of his 7 orifices as he was continuously struck by lightning. In the distance, Ying Zhixian and Qin Luoyin were looking at each other. The atmosphere was truly peculiar and rather strange. They actually met under such circumstances. They were the proud daughters of heaven and goddesses. No matter where they went, they were the focus of attention and were regarded as one of the most beautiful and powerful women in the universe. Now, they actually had karma with the same man, especially since they were bosom friends. At their level, there weren't many people in the same generation who could stand on equal footing. Therefore, they became one of the few female friends each other had. It was really strange for them to meet under such circumstances. To Ying Zhixian, when the little Taoist called her father, it really caused her heart to be endlessly shaken. It was truly unimaginable. The proud and arrogant Qin Luoyin had a child, and it was even Chu Feng's. To Ying Zhixian, this was an extraordinarily huge blow. One must know that in the past, Qin Luoyin and Chu Feng were like fire and water, and they would fight to the death the moment they met. Moreover, the damning Pure Land had sent out golden invitations to all parts of the universe this time, but they missed Chu Feng and didn't give him one. Now the two of them actually had a child. It was too sudden, and it made the elegant, otherworldly, tranquil, and profound Ying Zhixian speechless as she stood there in a daze. Qin Luoyin's figure was tall and slender. Her waist was slender, her eyes were bright, and her teeth were white. She was extremely beautiful, and there was a young soul light in the ball of light beside her. At this moment, her shock and astonishment weren't inferior to Ying Zhixian's. It was even more intense. Ying Xiaoxiao, calling her brother-in-law, made her feel as though she was struck by lightning. She simply didn't dare to believe it. In her eyes, Ying Zhixian was cold, elegant, and otherworldly. She was truly like a reincarnated immortal who had distanced herself from the world of mortals. But now, she was related to Chu Feng, and they had become Tao companions. This blow was rather huge. To her, it was inconceivable and hard to believe, especially when she was holding the heavenly infant. A child was at her side, and she was seen by the other party. Furthermore, she really didn't know how to greet him when she heard that form of address. But in general, she still felt slightly sour in her heart. Regardless of whether she was opposed to Chu Feng or hostile toward him, or whether it was an accident, she and Chu Feng had a child. In the end, she actually discovered that he had become Tao companions with her best friend when she came here. The blow wasn't small. Before this, she had never thought of becoming Tao companions with Chu Feng. She simply didn't think about it, and she wouldn't accept it either. It was already pretty good that they didn't fight to the death when they met. But now, Qin Luoyin felt a little empty in her heart when she encountered this kind of scene. Not far away, the silver-haired little Lolita was blinking her large eyes as she looked at Qin Luoyin and the child in the ball of light beside her. After that, she looked at her older sister and felt that this world was very chaotic. Older sister, this love rival of yours is very formidable. He's not inferior to you in any way. The most important thing is that he even has a child, she quietly said in a low voice. Don't. Because of this, she suffered a finger on her lustrous forehead, and it was so painful that tears almost flowed out. In the distance, Chu Feng was resisting the heavenly tribulation while paying attention to the matters over here. He really felt as though his head was about to explode. What was this called? He already had a child, and he felt as though the sky was collapsing and the earth was caving in. The little Taoist had a strange expression on his face. At this moment, he seemed to have come back to his senses as he sized up Ying Zhixian and said, "That biological father of mine is really formidable. In that case, you must be my legendary second mother." Ouch! Not far away, Chu Feng was so shocked by these words that he staggered once more. He was overturned by the lightning and buried underneath the blood-colored lightning. Boom! Ah! When the little Taoist didn't come and didn't speak, Chu Feng wasn't injured at all. But as soon as the little Taoist opened his mouth, Chu Feng was out of luck. He was struck by lightning to the point where his entire body was emitting smoke and he was almost in danger. That was because what this damn child said really made his mind unsteady and seriously distracted. In reality, Ying Zhexian and Qin Luoyin were disheveled at this moment. How could this child speak? He really dared to say anything. He was just born. Ying Zhexian really couldn't bear it anymore. She herself didn't expect that the first sentence she would ask Qin Luoyin when they met under such an awkward situation was actually this. That was because she truly felt that it was inconceivable. Was this a little demon? How could she know everything? It hasn't been born yet. It's just that his soul light has temporarily separated. Qin Luoyin's voice was so weak that it couldn't be heard. In reality, she also didn't expect that she would really answer and say such words. If it was in the past, she reckoned that she would probably sweep over with a divine technique and kill whoever dared to ask her such a question. However, this was her bosom friend, but also a love rival. It was too awkward between the two of them to actually face each other like this. The silver-haired little Lolita rubbed her forehead with her hand and pretended to have a headache. She said, "It's really complicated. Tao companion, love rival, and child. How can the word mess be enough? Brother-in-law's emotional world is really rich. I don't understand. Elder sister, it's fortunate that you're only carrying out soul light dual cultivation with him. Otherwise, I reckon you'll be like elder sister Qin and have to drag a child by your side." These words immediately made Ying Zhexian's exceptional complexion darken all the way to the bottom. This younger sister was really asking for a beating. She really should give her a beating. In the distance, Chu Feng let out another blood-curdling scream because this sister-in-law of his wasn't someone easy to deal with. He was rather startled by her words and was struck by lightning again. As long as he was distracted, he was guaranteed to be very miserable. However, he could not be distracted even if he wanted to by the words of few people not far away. Qin Luoyin's expression changed after she heard what was said. She could tell that the otherworldly princess of the quasi-saint race really had intimate contact with Chu Feng, with a real-time Tao companions. The goddess-like figure of damning pure land was in a peculiar mood now. She actually felt that her heart was empty and her facial expression was a little unnatural. The little Taoist spoke again as he stared at the silver-haired little Lolita and said, "You're my legendary aunt, right? Why do I feel that there's something going on between you and my biological father? Could it be that you can evolve in a little third mother or little fourth mother?" After that, Chu Feng staggered again as he was drowned in blood-colored lightning once more. He let out a blood-curdling scream because he was startled again. He felt that this damned child wasn't his son, but rather a creditor who had specially come to his door to collect debts and take revenge. Crack! Red lightning interweaved and blasted him flying diagonally. His body really couldn't take it anymore, and he looked a little miserable. The silver-haired little Lolita widened her eyes and looked at Qin Luoyin when she heard what was said and said, "Elder sister Qin, your child is a demon. You have to be on guard." However, her little face was also flushed red. Qin Luoyin was so embarrassed that she wanted to die at this moment. She actually ran into this pair of sisters while bringing along her son. The atmosphere of this encounter was too strange. She decisively pulled the little Taoist's ear because this child spoke too much and was universally shocking. He didn't seem like a normal child at all. The little Taoist's mouth was very annoying and he couldn't stop. At this moment, he stared at Chu Feng before looking at Ying Zhexian and Qin Luoyin and said, "Biological mother, second mother, why do the two of you like sodas? This biological father of mine is only 14 or 15 years old, right? He looks tender no matter how I look at him. Your tastes are really heavy." Bang! Qin Luoyin didn't wait for him to finish speaking before she fiercely beat him up. She beat him until he grimaced in pain and cried out. At this moment, even Ing Zhixian really wanted to say that this damn child really did need to be disciplined. He really dared to act recklessly and was a demon. In the distance, Chu Feng was also grinding his teeth. This kid really dared to say anything. He deserved it since he finally got beaten up and was struck by lightning several times in succession because he was distracted and almost lost his life here. This was a real scam. Huh? Ouyang Feng was laughing heartily as he flapped his wings and looked at Chu Feng, Ing Zhixian, Qin Luoyin, and the others. What bird is this? Why is it carrying a tortoise shell on its back? This little Taoist has never seen it before. The little Taoist's attention was drawn as he stared at the black swan in his eyes. Nephew, I'm your uncle. Have you thought about everything about your father? Old uncle can tell you. Ouyang Feng had an air of being proud of his age and experience. This humble Taoist feels that based on your soul light, you're only a few years old. We can call each other brothers at most. Uncle is out of the question. What? Absolutely not? How can your uncle divine, King Ouyang, endure being a generation younger than Chu Feng for no reason? The little Taoist was beaming as he said, "This humble Taoist will help you calculate your fortune. I see that your glabella is dark. There's bound to be a great calamity today. A bloody calamity is unavoidable." Ouyang Feng was startled at first. After that, his face darkened even more as he said, "Mother of asterisk her. Uncle Ouyang's face is dark in the first place. Naturally, my glabella is also dark. Tell me, which part of my body isn't dark?" "There is. Your head is green," the little Taoist said very seriously. Oh my. Ouyang Feng really wanted to hit someone. He was flustered and exasperated as he looked at Chu Feng and said, "Brother, don't say that I'm not giving you face. This son of yours is a monster and deserves a beating. Do you have any objections if I hit him?" Boom. He was just distracted like this, and he was met with tragedy. The green light that filled the sky poured down in torrents and smacked him below, causing him to scream miserably again and again. The little Taoist opened his mouth again and said, "Big brother Ouyang, look. Your entire body is green now." "Damn you." Ouyang Feng roared in the green light. At this moment, the silver-haired little Lolita opened her mouth and said, "Elder sister, I feel that you and elder sister Luoyin need to sit down and have a chat. This situation is too complicated. Even if you're best friends, you still have to talk openly." In the distance, Chu Feng felt that the sky was dim and the earth was dark. The little Taoist nodded and said, "Mother, second mother, I feel that what Little Aunt said is reasonable. We need to properly straighten out our relationship." At this moment, Chu Feng felt that this damned child was definitely an enemy who had come to collect a debt. It was better not to end this heavenly tribulation and just let it continue striking like this. Otherwise, how was he going to face it when the road ahead was dim? Why was he excited now? This is just seasoning and not the intense plot that I'm talking about. It's probably in the near future and is currently brewing. Chapter 809. The center of the forest was bare. Chu Feng and Ouyang Feng were crossing the tribulation. Blood-colored lightning and green lightning danced together. Both of them grimaced in pain as they endured the pain and suffered the torment. Not far away, Ing Zhixian and Qin Luoyin didn't even spare Chu Feng a glance. It was as if they had ignored him as they walked together. Elder sister, let me tell you, even blood brothers clearly settle accounts. Not to mention best friends. As the saying goes, guard against fire, theft, and best friends. Today's problem is very serious. You can't shrink back or give way. You must have a good talk. The silver-haired little Lolita followed beside her elder sister and gave her advice. Her little face was taut, and her large eyes were blinking. She had a very serious and solemn look as she repeatedly warned her elder sister. Ing Zhixian didn't express anything yet. Chu Feng heard everything clearly from a distance. He felt that the sky was dim and the earth was dark. He never thought that this sister-in-law's destructive power would be so great. From his point of view, it was guaranteed that a fight would break out with Ing Xiaoxiao's participation. What'd he do then? He paid the price for being absent-minded like this. The last wave of blood-colored lightning descended from the lightning tribulation. The most ferocious and terrifying heavenly punishment arrived. Boom! It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting apart. Chu Feng's soul light was almost scattered. He was considered to have made it through the heavenly tribulation after enduring this wave. If he really couldn't, then his soul would scatter and scatter. Elder sister, say something. You can't be so magnanimous. You've already cultivated your soul light as a pair with him. This isn't a secret, and I know all about it. You're leading this child astray. You can't back out halfway. You have to persevere to the end. The silver-haired little Lolita was definitely doing this on purpose. She didn't even turn her back and spoke in such a low voice. Chu Feng really wanted to say, "Do you, this so-called child, still need to be led astray by others?" He couldn't help but mutter when he thought of this. You're too precocious. You're even worse than Ouyang Feng. Ouyang Feng was speechless. After that, he looked askance at Chu Feng and said, Mother of ***, what does this have to do with me? This is your family's business. Grandfather Ouyang is being unjustly implicated while transcending the tribulation. Also, I think that son of yours isn't a good person. Turns out he inherited everything from you. He's not a good person at all. Ouyang Feng was still annoyed by the little Taoist green remarks just now. In the distance, Ying Zhixian decisively dealt with her younger sister. She pinched her little face and secretly taught her a lesson. At this moment, Ying Zhixian and Qin Luoyin walked together and met each other with a smile on their faces. One was as elegant as a fairy while the other was noble and graceful. They both had exceptional appearances. There was no conflict between the two of them, and there wasn't any animosity between them. They chatted harmoniously and laughed incessantly. There's killing intent. Both of them are hiding daggers behind their smiles. There was a hidden sharpness in Luoyin's words just now. My sister isn't a simple person either. She's a master. The silver-haired little lowly was trying to decipher the situation. This made Chu Feng speechless. She saw through it, but didn't say it out loud. He really wanted to say, why are you messing around? However, he was also a little skeptical. Did the two best friends who were like sisters really have knives and swords in their gentle conversation just now? If it wasn't for the silver-haired lowly's interpretation, he wouldn't have noticed it. It was only after listening to Ying Xiaoxiao's explanation that Chu Feng felt that there seemed to be hidden sharpness between the two of them. But this was too vague. He felt that it was specious, but it was actually wrong. He really didn't hear it at first. For example, Qin Luoyin praised Ying Zhixian for becoming more and more otherworldly and ethereal. She had a kind of ethereal feeling and was getting further and further away from the world of mortals. Chu Feng felt that this was indeed the case. Ying Zhixian was usually cold, elegant, and tranquil. She was indeed like a fairy of the moon and had a kind of otherworldly feeling. But according to Ying Xiaoxiao's interpretation, this was Qin Luoyin admonishing Ying Zhixian to continue being her otherworldly fairy. She told Ying Zhixian not to be bewitched by the desires of the world of mortals and not to get mixed up between her and Chu Feng. Another example was Ying Zhixian praising Qin Luoyin's elegance and propriety. She said that she was worthy of being the goddess that all the youngsters in the starry sky yearned for. In the end, according to the silver-haired lowly's explanation, this was her older sister's sharp counterattack. She said that damning Pure Land was particular about decency and that Qin Luoyin was destined to be fruitless with Chu Feng. That was because according to the rules of this orthodoxy, Qin Luoyin definitely couldn't walk together with her enemy and could only be a noble goddess. Damning Pure Land didn't allow her to expose her relationship with Chu Feng. Chu Feng was speechless. He felt that he wasn't stupid and was even rather sharp, but he really didn't realize these things at first. The silver-haired lowly's interpretation was really vivid. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed that it really was the case. Chu Feng really wanted to look up at the sky and sigh. How exactly did the 10 greats raise their children? Were the thoughts of such a young child so complicated? At the side, Ouyang Feng who was crossing his tribulation, was also speechless. He was struck by lightning as he said to Chu Feng, "The people in your family are really amazing. Each and every one of them is unfathomable. Even such a weird little girl is like a needle at the bottom of the sea." "What do you mean by our family?" retorted Chu Feng. "Didn't you hear what your son said? This silver-haired lowly might even evolve into little third lady or little fourth lady." Chu Feng didn't have time to pay attention to him because the last wave of blood-colored lightning was too ferocious. It struck him to the ground. The test of life and death had arrived. The final moment had arrived. "Elder sister, there's actually no need for you and elder sister Qin to cross swords. I think this matter is very simple." The silver-haired lowly couldn't stay idle and started to give suggestions. Ing Zhixian berated her and said, "If you dare to talk nonsense again, be careful that I seal your little mouth. It's very normal for me to reminisce with Luoyin. It's not as complicated as you think it is. TSK, do you really think I'm still a child? You must know that I've received our mother's teachings, and I'm well versed in the art of palace fighting. Back then, our father originally wanted to marry 9 concubines into the family. They were all beauties from various races that he got to know when he was gaining experience in the universe. In the end, our mother got rid of 7 of them in the palace fighting. In the end, our father only married the second lady and the third lady. Moreover, we're the same bloodline. I know that mother has also taught you, so I can understand it." In the distance, Chu Feng was petrified as he was struck by lightning. Ouyang Feng was also speechless. He deeply sympathized with Chu Feng. This kind of family education and this kind of mother-daughter inheritance could be said to have a long history of family learning. Chu Feng would suffer in the future. Ouyang Feng expressed deep sympathy and said, "I think you'll be very miserable in the future. Besides, I think this little girl is clearly saying this for you to hear on purpose." I didn't understand what she meant for a moment. "I only hate that I don't know the art of palace fighting." "Ah, stop hitting me, elder sister. It hurts." Ing Xiao was ruthlessly beaten up by her elder sister. "What are you thinking about at such a young age? If you dare to speak nonsense again, I'll seal you right away." Ing Zhixian warned. "What? I'm being beaten up even though I'm speaking the truth. There's no justice in this world." After that, Ing Xiao saw that Ing Zhixian was glaring at her again. She immediately changed her words and said, "Actually, this matter isn't difficult to resolve. Can't you just ask my brother-in-law directly? Who exactly does he like? Cut the Gordian knot with a swift knife. There's no need to hurt the feelings between your best friends. Leave it to the great demon Chu Feng to resolve." F***ck. At this moment, Chu Feng had the urge to strangle her to death. He was already having a headache, but now she had kicked the ball back to him, and he had to make a clear choice. Was he courting death? He was still courting death. Ing Zhixian's face darkened slightly as she warned the silver-haired little Lolita again not to call him brother-in-law. After that, she didn't make a sound. This meant that she didn't object to letting Chu Feng stand out and say something. At the same time, Qin Luoyin wore a faint smile and didn't say anything. She intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Chu Feng. In a split second, Chu Feng felt as though he was sitting on pins and needles. These 2 women might not necessarily have feelings for him, but they probably wanted to see how he would choose. In reality, he could basically be considered to have endured the heavenly tribulation. There was only the last piece of heavenly lightning left, and he could completely block it with a wonderful technique if he concentrated a little. But he was overturned at the last moment. Chi, chi, chi. Streaks of bloody light descended one after another and drowned him. This shocked Chu Feng so much that his hair stood on end. He had no choice but to activate his wonderful technique and go all out to resist with all his might. It was extremely dangerous. He was almost struck into ashes. Fortunately, the heavenly tribulation was over, but he lay on the ground and didn't want to get up. He always felt that expressing his position now was even more terrifying than dealing with the heavenly tribulation. That was because he would capsize if he wasn't careful. At the same time, Ouyang Feng shouted, I'm about to endure it even without a corporeal body. Divine King Ouyang is gifted by the heavens. You can rely on your spiritual body to resist it. Bang! A ball of jade-green light enveloped him and completely submerged him. This stretch of forest trembled violently. Rubble collapsed and flew everywhere. The river dried up and the barren area in the middle was expanding. In the end, the lightning struck the magma out of the ground. A volcano erupted here and the scene was terrifying. Finally, everything quieted down. Ouyang Feng also endured the heavenly tribulation. He was just a soul light like Chu Feng, yet he was able to accomplish such a magnificent feat. Is it done? Ouyang Feng looked at his own soul light. He and Chu Feng had shrunk a size smaller than before. A portion of their spiritual energy and divine matter had been struck and scattered, but they were even more condensed and pure. Their yang qi was abundant. Brother-in-law, why don't you say something? Ing Xiao shouted over there. I have a headache. I was struck by lightning and can't move. I need to recuperate for a while. Chu Feng pretended to look weak. After that, he quietly glanced at that son of his. Why was he so quiet for such a long time? Why wasn't he causing trouble for his father again? He immediately jumped in fright when he took a look because that child's eyeballs weren't even blinking. He was staring fixedly at him with a suspicious look on his face. What's going on? Chu Feng felt that something was amiss. Father, why do I find you more and more familiar? We've definitely met somewhere before. The little Taoist walked over right away and circled around Chu Feng. Chu Feng stared at this son of his and was also pondering. He looked at this youngster's delicate features. Even though he was in his soul form, he indeed resembled him a little. At the same time, he also resembled Qin Luoyin a little. He felt that this was undoubtedly his bloodline. However, Chu Feng also felt that this youngster was a little familiar. This was emitted from the temperament and attribute of his soul light. He suspected that he had really seen him somewhere before. After that, he discovered that this damned child wasn't very old. His soul body was actually dressed as a Taoist. He used a portion of his soul light to transform into a Taoist robe and had the appearance of a little Taoist. In the next moment, Chu Feng's mind trembled and he came to his senses. He felt that he had really seen this little Taoist before. In a split second, an old matter surfaced in his mind. There was once a young Taoist at the end of the reincarnation road who held a black talisman in his hand. He was dressed exactly like this, and his temperament was exactly the same. Chu Feng remembered clearly that he couldn't hold back at that time and attacked that young Taoist. He smacked the black brick from behind and snatched away the black talisman. In the end, that young Taoist was startled and immediately scuttled into the reincarnation cave and ran away. Chu Feng was dumbstruck. There really was reincarnation? That young Taoist finally reincarnated into his family and became his son? Did he come to find him for the black talisman, or did he come to retaliate against him? The little Taoist circled around him. The more he looked at Chu Feng, the more familiar he felt. In the end, he really couldn't bear it anymore and asked Ing Zhixian, Qin Luoyin, and the others if they had a bracelet and could lend it to him. Come, Uncle has a spatial bracelet here. I'll lend it to you, said Ouyang Feng as he passed over a silvery white spatial bracelet. Ouyang Feng passed over a silvery white spatial bracelet because this fellow's divine senses were extremely sharp. He felt that there was something going on here, so he actively cooperated. After that, the little Taoist put the silvery white bracelet on Chu Feng's wrist and said, Father, don't pretend to be dispirited anymore. Sit cross-legged and let me take a look. He asked Ouyang Feng to come over and help him. The two of them helped Chu Feng up together and made him sit cross-legged on the spot. Chu Feng understood that this damn child and this stinky Taoist reckoned that they almost recognized him. That was because the posture Chu Feng was in when he was wearing the diamond chakram and sitting cross-legged in the reincarnation cave back then. Boundless deity, it's actually you. The little Taoist shouted loudly. After that, he grabbed the collar of Chu Feng's soul armor. At this moment, Ouyang Feng started to sing very unkindly and said, There is reincarnation in the heavenly Tao. Who has the heavens ever spared? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.